Chapter 71, My Choice. With her Byakugan active, she saw it. She saw Naruto's body being dropped to the floor, discarded. Saw that Naruto no longer had chakra or a heartbeat or life. No, she whispered. Okami, no. Her hands dropped to her sides and her shoulders slumped as all will to fight, or even move, left her. A puppet with a spiked club for an arm came at her. She made no effort to try and escape it. Hinata. Kiba threw his twisting form into the puppet. His lightning fang tore it apart before it could reach her. As soon as that was done, he landed by her side. Hinata, what's wrong with you? We're in the middle of a battle. You can't lose focus here. She barely heard him as she fell to her knees and began to sob. It didn't matter now, nothing mattered. Naruto-kun. She cried out as her heart broke. XXXXXXXXXX. Itachi heard his leader's command within his mind. It seems the extraction is now complete. I have no reason to continue this battle. What do you mean? Kushina asked furiously. The Kyuubi has been extracted and Naruto is now dead. Again, you have my condolences. I don't believe you, you damn liar. You will see for yourself soon enough. With a hand sign he was gone. Kushina was left there, still furious and without a target for her rage. I don't believe him. She muttered angrily. Sensei? Gabriella asked. Kushina looked around for the nearest enemy, but to her great surprise the fighting seemed to be over. Akatsuki's sudden withdrawal from such a pitched battle did not please her. It actually scared the hell out of her. She looked over to her student. Come on, we need to find Tsunade so we can head into the base. I don't believe Itachi. I don't. XXXXXXXXXX. A hatch popped open and out of the now ruined puppet a red-haired boy climbed out. He sent Guy and especially Lee a hateful glare. You've ruined my second favorite puppet. He stopped for an instant as though listening for something. And it seems I will not even be able to properly punish you. Bah, I'll deal with the two of you another day. He disappeared in a swirl of wind and sand. All about the battlefield the remaining puppets came to halt and fell to the ground inanimate. XXXXXXXXXX. Despite her very best efforts, Ino had not been able to control the clay bird she was riding on a slow descent towards the forest. I am never ever doing this again with someone who is flying. Deidara wailed as the ground approached. Waiting until the last instant, Deidara slammed his palms together. Kai. He stiffened for an instant and then came to his senses. Right before slamming into a tree. What? Some time later, when he finally got his bruised and battered body out of a tangle of shrubs and tree limbs, he was not happy. XXXXXXXXXX. Kabuto smiled at the woman he still dodged away from. Well, it seems like my work here is done. Too bad about Naruto. Better luck next time. What do you mean? Tsunade demanded. But Kabuto's only answer was a cheery wave goodbye before leaving in a puff of smoke. Tsunade stopped and looked about. It seemed that they had won. The fighting was over as all the Akatsuki members seemed to have fled. She felt a cold stab of fear. I have a bad feeling about this. XXXXXXXXXX. It took 5 minutes to reach the underground chamber. A number of lethal traps slowed them up just a bit. A broken Hinata warned them where they were and how to avoid or deactivate them. She had told them that they were too late. But Tsunade rushed ahead as fast as possible on the slim hope that somehow she might be wrong. Tsunade's fist smashed open the door to the chamber. It was a vast and empty space, completely empty. Except for one thing. Naruto. Kushina screamed and ran to her son's side. She dropped to her knees and pulled him up into her arms. His eyes did not open and his head lolled back. She performed a diagnostic jutsu. There was no heartbeat. There was no breath. His body was empty of chakra. He was dead. She held him tighter and pressed her weeping face into his cheek. He was still warm. No, 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 oh baby please no. Oh Naruto-kun, my baby, open your eyes and look at me. She began to rock him back and forth in her arms. It's all right my baby, everything is all right. Mother is here now and I won't let anyone ever hurt you. In a voice choking back sobs she began singing a lullaby to him. Right by her side Hinata also knelt down. She couldn't speak. The sorrow in her heart seemed too much to overcome. She let her tears flow and gently took one of his hands and held it in her own. Everyone gathered around in a respectful silence at the heart-wrenching scene. There were tears and silent prayers spoken. Unable to look on, Ino buried her face into Chuji's chest. He held her and tried to comfort her. Kiba, Shikamaru, Chuji, Haku, Yamato, and Lee all felt the terrible pain as well of losing someone they had long known and cared for. Even those who had not known him well, or not known him at all, were deeply saddened by the sight. Tsunade slowly approached. As she moved, time seemed to melt away. Looking down, she saw Nawaka's face there. Then she saw Dan's. She remembered the day he had been born. She had been the one to bring him into the world. Her face was the very first thing his eyes had ever seen. She remembered his 12th birthday, when she had given him the necklace. Knowing you has healed my heart and allowed me to love again. She reached behind her neck and unclasped the necklace. After Dan died I swore I would never give this to anyone else. But I've decided that once more, just once more, I will put the odds on you. Tsunade, you can't. It's too much. Kusina gasped. Tsunade looked at her and shook her head. All this is proof of my faith in your son. She turned back to Naruto. Naruto-kun, I accepted the position of Godame Hokage so I could make sure you would reach your dream one day. Become the good man and great ninja I know you will be, and when the time comes I will name you my successor. She placed the necklace around his neck. Accept from me this necklace and with it my blessing. She leaned forward and kissed his forehead. Naruto hugged her as hard as he could. I love you, godmother. I love you too, Naruto. Tsunade whispered. Kusina heard the words and suddenly looked up. Tsunade, she pleaded. Isn't there anything you can do? It can't be too late. He's still warm. Isn't there something you can do? And to everyone's surprise, even Kusina's, Tsunade nodded. Yes, there is. There were gasps from near every throat. Hinata's head suddenly snapped up. There is. Kusina was ready to grasp any straw. Her eyes filled with a desperate hope. Again Tsunade slowly nodded. There is a jutsu, she explained in a quiet voice as she knelt down as well. I developed it during the time I was still trying to run away. I was determined to never lose anyone again. So between gambling sprees and bouts of drunken self-pity I would work on an ultimate healing jutsu, one that could cure even a mortal wound. One that could cure even death so long as the body was still intact. She noticed something as she gently took Naruto from his mother's arms and laid him back down on the floor. They didn't take his necklace. I guess the only thing they cared about was the Kuwabai. Tsunade-sensei, Hinata managed to speak. I have never heard of such a jutsu. There's a very good reason for that. Tsunade answered. I never taught it to anyone, not even Shizuan. I decided that it was a forbidden technique. But why? Hinata asked. Why would you make such a wonderful jutsu forbidden? Because of the cost. Tsunade said quietly. In order to restore a life, the caster's life must be sacrificed. Much like the jutsu used by Minato to seal the Kuwabai, the life restoration jutsu requires the sacrifice of a human life. Kusina looked to her friend. Take my life for his, I give it gladly. There were shouts as some told her she could not do such a thing while others also offered to make the sacrifice. Quiet. Tsunade shouted and everyone quieted down. She looked to her friend and shook her head. It has to be the caster's life. Then teach me this jutsu and I'll perform it. Kusina said. No, I'm not teaching it to you or anyone else. She sent Hinata a firm look. Kusina stared at her. Pain and hope and crushing sorrow were all plain to see. She slowly shook her head. I can't ask this. You never asked. It is my choice. I have had a good life. I've lived a lot longer than any ninja should, and I've had more adventures than any 10 people could expect to. I've known love and friendship. I have had a full life. Reaching down, she gently touched his cheek. I want him to have one. I want him to have his dream and to be happy and to die an old man surrounded by fat grandchildren. I love Naruto, and just like you or Hinata or any of the others who love him, I would give my life to save his. Hokage-sama, you cannot do this. One of the Umbu spoke up. And why not? She asked calmly. Your duty as Hokage is to guard and protect the village. She nodded. Yes, that is my duty as Hokage, and that is what I am doing now. Despite my appearance, I am no longer young. I cannot protect Konoha's future, that is for Naruto to do. Every Hokage has sacrificed themselves to protect and safeguard the village. That is what I am doing now. Naruto will be the greatest of all Hokages, he will safeguard and protect Konoha better than I ever could. And to help him with that, I give all of you one final order. She looked about for a moment. Everything that has happened here is an S-rank secret. No one is to know the details of how I died or how Naruto was rescued. I don't want a bunch of fools hating him for something that was not his fault. He has already had enough of that in his life. She saw nods from everyone, including the Umbu operative who had questioned her. Tsunade, I don't know how to thank you for this. Kusina struggled to get the words out. Tsunade reached out and hugged her friend. There's no need, he's my godson after all. But I would like you to pass on a pair of messages for me. Kusina nodded eagerly. Of course. First, tell Naruto not to feel any guilt over my death. I know he would give his life to save the people he loves. I am doing the same. Second, she hesitated just a bit. Please tell Jiraiya that I know he loves me. Tell him that I am very sorry that I could not return his feelings. Tell him I care for him, even if he is a loudmouth pervert. She smiled fondly. And tell him I'm sorry about the salt. Salt. He'll know. She looked to Hinata. There is also one thing I'd like you to promise me as well, Hinata. Anything, Tsunade-sensei. Just always be there when he needs you, even if he doesn't want to admit that he does. Hinata nodded fiercely. I will always be there for him and will never let him go again. Tsunade smiled. You are a good girl, Hinata, and Naruto is very lucky to have you. At last she looked down at his form and began forming dozens of hand signs faster than any eye could follow. Except those with the Sharingan. Now then. She completed the jutsu and placed both hands upon his chest. Green chakra surrounded her entire form as she poured not only chakra but her life energy into him. The silence was total as every eye watched as the Godame Hokage began to sweat and to pant. Kusina put an arm around her both to support her and offer comfort. As Tsunade poured more and more of herself into the transfer, she could feel herself weakening and beginning to become cold. She had no second thoughts. She loved him like a son and was as willing as his mother to sacrifice herself for his sake. Out her life force flowed into him. She was growing tired very quickly, but she would last long enough to finish it, and then she would rest. I am very sorry I will never get to see you as Hokage, my sweet boy. I know you will make me proud just as you always have. Be a great Naruto-kun and always do what you know to be right. The future is yours. As she neared the end, she felt his heart begin to beat again and chakra pulsed once more. He's alive. Hinata cried out joyously. And as if to prove it, he gasped and opened his eyes. He looked up in confusion. Godmother. He barely whispered. She smiled. I love you, Naruto. With that she shut her eyes and fell back to be caught by Kushina. Carefully holding her, Kushina set her down gently on the stone floor. He felt completely weak and exhausted. The last time he'd felt like this was after being beaten near to death by that Jonin while he was an academy student. His mind was fuzzy and he didn't know what was happening. He saw Hinata kneeling over him crying and he could feel her gentle touch on his cheek. "Hinata-chan," he rasped out. "Am I dead? Is this heaven?" And she smiled for him. "No, my Naruto-kun, you're alive." Leaning down she kissed him and then pressed her cheek to his as she wept. "You're alive." Chapter 72, The Rokudame Hokage. The sun was climbing up into the sky. After everything that had happened they had all pretty much agreed a rest was called for. They had searched out the base to find it containing nothing of real value. There was nothing that hinted where other bases might be or what future plans Akatsuki might have. A pair of the Umbu had been sent to retrieve Kakashi and bring him over. After what had happened there had been condolences and words of sympathy. But surprisingly little more had been said to him. What was there to say exactly? "How long are we going to leave him alone?" Hinata said worriedly. "Leave him be, Hinata," Kushina said calmly. "After everything he has been through he needs a little time." "Well, he needs to eat." She took a small bowl filled with rice. "As a medic nin, I know how much he needs food right now to get his strength back." She began walking towards him. Kushina watched her go with a small smile. Secretly pleased to see Hinata behaving very much like a wife. They were all outside having lunch and resting. Given the strain they had all endured to get here, it only made sense now to get some food and rest before making the trip home. Everyone turned to look as Hinata left the group and headed off. XXXXXXXXXXX. When he had first been revived he'd been as weak as a kitten and badly disoriented. He had slowly recovered some strength along with his senses. At that point Kushina had taken him aside and explained what had happened. After that he had begged to be left alone for a while and gone a ways into the nearby forest. Hinata's instinct had been to go after him, but Kushina had convinced her and the others to give him some time alone. Hinata had kept an eye on him with her Byakugan just in case. Now he'd had a few hours and Hinata was going to see him whether he wanted her to or not. XXXXXXXXXXX. He was just sitting there, his back against a large oak. As she approached him she knew he could sense her presence, but he didn't react. He just sat there looking off into the distance. She came to a halt about 10 feet from him and just waited for a bit. It would be easier if he would acknowledge she was there. But he just sat there. Finally she spoke up. "Naruto-kun, you need to eat something. I brought you some nice steamed rice." "I'm not hungry," he said dully. "Naruto-kun, you haven't eaten in 3 days. You need to eat to regain your strength." "I'm not hungry, Hinata-chan. I'll eat a ration bar later." She sighed. A ration bar was actually healthier than a bowl of rice. The only bad thing about them was that they tasted like pasty cardboard. "Fine." She set the bowl down and reached into a pouch. She pulled out a ration bar and approached him holding it out. "Here, eat it now." He looked over to the offering without any enthusiasm. "I'll have it later. Naruto-kun, I am not leaving here until I see you eat something," she said in a firm voice. He looked up at her face. With a resigned sigh he took the bar from her and unwrapped it. He shoved about half of it into his mouth and slowly began to chew. He had to stop and drink some water from his canteen. She could see him make a face as he kept on chewing. Well, he could have had rice. Finally he swallowed the nutritious, if bland, paste in his mouth. Without a word he shoved in the rest of the bar and took another swig of water. Hinata stood there patiently as he chewed, and chewed. Finally he swallowed it down. He looked at her with a frown. "Happy now?" She slowly nodded. "I just wanted to get you to eat something." "Well, now I've eaten." He looked away from her again and stared off into the forest. She waited there for a long moment hoping he would say something more to her. Finally she picked the bowl back up. "I'm sorry if I'm bothering you," she said quietly and turned to leave. "Hinata-chan." He called to her and she stopped in her tracks. "Hinata-chan, I'm sorry if I'm being a jerk. You never bother me. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know anything right now." It was one of the very few times she had ever seen or heard him be confused. "It's alright Naruto-kun, after everything that has happened you're allowed to be a bit of a mess. But please don't push away all the people who want to help you." Her voice ached. "I don't want to see you all alone." He slowly nodded and tried to smile. It was a pale imitation of his usual smile but she was still glad to see it. "Naruto-kun, can I please sit with you?" she asked longingly. It might have been a bit selfish of her, but she wanted to be with him. She ached just for the simple comfort of his body resting against hers. He slowly nodded. "Sure Hinata-chan." With a relieved sigh she put the bowl down again and sat down beside him. He put an arm around her and she snuggled close to him as she rested her head on his warm shoulder. Nothing more was said between them as they just sat there in a comforting silence. XXXXXXXXXX. I wonder what Hinata is going to say to him. Haku spoke. She is probably going to tell him just how much she loves him and just how relieved she is that he's alright. Gabriella said quietly. Teiwei grinned. Or maybe she's going to push him down on the grass and show him how much she loves him. Gabriella shot her teammate an angry look. Do you have to be so damn vulgar? Teiwei stiffened and gave the other girl a harsh look of her own. What the hell is vulgar about it? If the boy I loved came back from the dead you had better believe that's exactly what I'd do. She sent Haku a sidelong glance. Hey, I saw that. Gabriella took a menacing step forward. Saw what, princess? Teiwei took a step forward as well. With a tired sigh Haku stepped between them. As on so many other occasions he tried to play peacemaker. Do you two really want to fight with everyone watching? The two girls sent him identical looks that were equal parts annoyance and hostility. Before either of them could say or do anything more, Guy suddenly shouted. Yosh! Someone is coming. That immediately got everyone's attention. People got to their feet and looked on as a figure leapt out of the forest. The ninja landed near them and immediately bent over and put his hands on his knees as he was panting. I guess I missed it. Jiraiya caught his breath. Is Naruto alright? Kusina, Guy, Asuma, and Tenzo all shared a look. Yes, Naruto-kun is fine. Kusina was finally the one to answer. He and Hinata are off on their own right now. Jiraiya smiled and looked relieved. I knew the kid would be alright. I'm just sorry I didn't get here in time to help. He looked around. So where is Tsunade? Knowing her, she probably wants to yell at me for being late. Kusina took a deep breath. Jiraiya, there is something I need to tell you. XXXXXXXXXXX. Tsunade's body had been left inside where it was a bit cooler. She had been placed on a mat with her eyes closed and her hands folded upon her chest. In death she looked not at all like she had in life. Her concealing jutsu was gone. Her hair was mostly gray with only a bit of blonde still left. Her perfect skin was wrinkled with spots, especially along her arms. On her face were deep lines radiating from her eyes and the corners of her mouth. She was revealed as what she truly was, a woman in her late 50s who had seen a lot of travel and lived a lot of life. To Jiraiya she was every bit as beautiful as she had always been. "Oh Tsunade," he whispered. He looked to Naruto and Kusina who were the only others present. You know, it's almost funny. I never once thought I'd be the last son in. She was the one with the family name and all the natural talent. Orochimaru was the genius. And me? I was the fool, the screw-up. He chuckled dryly. But here I am, last one standing. He fell silent. The three of them just stood there looking down at her. Do you hate me? Naruto suddenly asked in a choked sob. Kushina and Naruto both looked at him startled. This was my fault. She died because of me. Jiraiya reached out and grabbed him by the front of his shirt and yanked him forward so they were face to face about an inch apart. Don't ever say that again, kid. Jiraiya growled at him. She died because of the Akatsuki, not because of you. She made a choice, Naruto, just like your father did, just like the old man did. Don't blame yourself, kid, cause I don't. Naruto felt the shame consume him. He also was very afraid what Jiraiya would think of him. But he swallowed and told him. Itachi captured me because I was stupid and arrogant. I got a message at my hotel saying there was an Umbu messenger waiting for me to deliver a special message. I knew that wasn't standard procedure. Even if the message was for me, it would have been sent through my squad leader, Kakashi. I should have known better. I should have called in Kakashi and the rest of my team. But I honestly thought that Tsunade was giving me a special mission only I could handle. And when I got there I knew it was Itachi. I decided to fight. I didn't try to call for help or to run. Maybe I couldn't have, it was over so quick, maybe it was already too late. But I didn't try to call for help because I figured I was tough enough to handle it. Naruto cast his eyes down, no longer able to bear looking at Jiraiya's. Naruto, how could you do something so stupid? Jiraiya's voice was not angry but frustrated. How many times did I remind you that Akatsuki would always be a danger to you? How many times did I warn you to be aware of possible traps? And just how many times did I try to drive the concept of strategic withdrawal into that thick skull of yours? What, did you really believe that just because you could pull of the Hiraishin that you were invincible? Jiraiya could see the boy's face redden. You did, didn't you? Naruto, if being a ninja taught you nothing else, it should have taught you that anyone can be taken out with the right circumstances. No one is invincible all the time. I know that. He whimpered. I'm so sorry. Jiraiya let go of his grip and took a deep breath. Naruto, look at me. Naruto hesitated before raising his eyes to look at the older man's face. Jiraiya was frowning but did not seem angry. Naruto flinched a bit as Jiraiya placed a hand on his shoulder. Listen, kid, I'm not going to lie, what you did was stupid. And you really should have known better. But that said, even if you had done the smart thing and called in your team, there is still a chance you would have been captured. With an enemy like Itachi after you, there was always a chance of that, especially when you were away on a mission. If you had been captured through no fault of your own, things would have played out exactly the same way. Learn from your mistake, Naruto, but don't blame yourself. That is the last thing Tsunade would have wanted. But if I had just what? Jiraiya cut off sharply. Been smarter? Been stronger? Then none of this would have happened? Maybe, Naruto flinched. And maybe you would have been captured 3 months from now instead. Maybe one of your teammates would have been killed. Maybe you would have been. So long as Akatsuki was determined to take you, the possibility of something like this happening was always there. You could have handled things better, Naruto, no doubt, but even if you had, there still might have been tragedy. Jiraiya looked away from him and back down at her. A ninja's life is filled with the tragic, Naruto, that is something you should already know well. Don't blame yourself, blame Akatsuki. Naruto very slowly nodded, relieved that Jiraiya did not hate him. Arigato. Don't thank me, kid, Jiraiya said as he took out a scroll, inkpot, and brush. I haven't done anything. He quickly filled out the scroll. Seal. Tsunade's body disappeared and was transferred into the scroll. I will carry her back to Konoha. He was not making a request. Kushina looked at her son and was careful to hide her disappointment. She'd expected better from him. She had taught him a long time ago not to take foolish chances. But looking at his sorrow, she knew the lesson had already been driven home. She would not say anything. Jiraiya had pretty much said it all anyway. XXXXXXXXXX. As the three of them left the base, they saw everyone standing around waiting on them. One of the Umbu approached them and bowed. Naruto-sama, we have all eaten and rested. What are your orders? Naruto looked at the man in shock. What are you asking me for? Ask my mom or Jiraiya or Asuma. Despite the mask, Naruto could see the surprise on the man. But Naruto-sama, the man said carefully. You are now Hokage and therefore have final authority. Naruto stiffened and looked at the man as though he were insane. Are you kidding? I am not the Hokage. Yamato had removed his mask and stepped forward. Actually, Naruto, you are. You were officially appointed successor with the approval of both Tsunade-sama and the council. By law, with the previous Hokage's death, you automatically become Hokage. With that, Yamato stiffened and performed a deep bow. Hokage-sama. The other Umbu did the same. And not just the Umbu. Hokage-sama. Asuma said and bowed. Hokage-sama. Guy said and bowed. Lee eagerly followed his sensei's example, as did Tenten. Shikamaru, Ino, and Chuji all looked at one another before they also bowed and acknowledged him Hokage. Hokage-sama. Haku bowed to him with a happy smile. Gabriella offered a formal bow while Teiwa bent forward just a bit and mumbled something. Hinata sent him a blissful look as she offered him a deep and formal bow. Hokage-sama. Kiba looked amused but bowed as well. Kakashi was lying on his back but offered a wave. Seeing so many of the people he cared for actually bowing to him and calling him Hokage seemed surreal to him. But there hasn't been any ceremony. I can't be Hokage. Jiraiya grinned. Sorry to tell you this, kid, but the law says that you are. There'll still be a coronation, but that's just to give the public a chance to celebrate your installation. You really are the Rokudaime Hokage now. Try not to screw it up. And with that, Jiraiya took a step back and offered him one of the very few bows he ever gave anyone. Hokage-sama. His mom smiled. Naruto grabbed her arm and whispered to her in panic. Mom, please don't, it's weird enough seeing Jiraiya and Hinata do it. Laughing, Kushina leaned forward and gave her son a kiss on the cheek. I'll consider that the very first order from the new Hokage. I am so very proud of you, Naruto-kun. He looked at her worriedly and whispered to her. Mom, I don't think I'm worthy of being Hokage. She nodded sympathetically and gave her son a hug. She whispered in his ear. It's all right, Naruto-kun, no one ever is. Chapter 73, The Secret. Everyone was getting ready to depart. XXXXXXXXXX. So she cared for me. Jiraiya said with a fond smile. Kushina nodded. What exactly did she mean by salt? Jiraiya chuckled but declined to explain. XXXXXXXXXX. Yosh, my eternal rival, are you prepared to go? Without waiting for an answer, Guy grabbed him and put him on his back. The image was just a bit disturbing. This isn't really necessary, Guy. A panicked Kakashi spoke up. Nonsense, my eternal rival. As both a fellow Leaf Ninja and as your lifelong rival, it is my duty to aid you in your time of distress. Guy laughed. Besides, it will be good training. Hearing his sensei mention training, Lee's eyes lit up. He immediately turned to his teammate. Tenten saw the look in his eyes and took out a kunai menacingly. Don't even think about it. XXXXXXXXXX. Naruto-kun, Hinata called to him. Before we go, there's something I want to give you. She pulled out her backpack and took something out that was covered by a blanket. Naruto looked at her curiously. What is it, Hinata-chan? She pulled back the blanket to reveal the object. Oh. My katana. He carefully took it from her. Arigato, Hinata-chan, I was afraid it was lost. She shook her head. I would never have left it behind, I know how much it means to you. He grinned and nodded. Yeah, he cut his palm. What are you doing? She asked crossly. Naruto looked a bit sheepish. Well, I did draw it to fight. That means I have to give it blood before I put it back. He quickly wiped the sword down and put it into his scabbard. Naruto-kun, you don't have the Kyuubi's chakra to heal you anymore. Hinata pointed out. Naruto just shrugged. Neither does my mom, she still does it though. It's an Uzumaki clan tradition, I know. Hinata sighed unhappily. She'd never liked this particular tradition. Well, let me heal you. She took his hand and examined the wound. Her eyes widened. Naruto-kun, look. A bit surprised by her reaction, he looked at his palm. The cut was almost completely closed. It had not healed as fast as it would have before, but it was close. I don't understand, I don't have the Kyuubi anymore, how can I still have my healing? Hinata smiled. It's probably a little like building up an immunity. If you get sick, your body learns how to fight off the sickness. So the next time you get the same infection, your body knows how to deal with it and is able to do so much more quickly. My guess is that after all the years of the Kyuubi's chakra being used to heal you, your body has developed the same method using your own chakra. And like before, you don't need to do anything, your body will heal you on its own. Seeing his big smile, she pressed on. But keep in mind that since this will be using your chakra instead of the Kyuubi's, it won't be as effective. Naruto slowly nodded. That makes sense, I guess. It's still a lot better than nothing. I wonder what else has stayed the same. With a little grin, Hinata reached out and stroked his cheek. Well, I'm going to miss your whiskers, I always thought they were cute. Kiba came over with Akamaru walking beside him. Hey Naruto, why don't you go ahead and ride on Akamaru on the way back? Akamaru yipped his agreement. Naruto shook his head. No thanks, I'll go on my own strength. Hinata shook her head and crossed her arms. No, you will not, Naruto-kun, you still haven't fully recovered. You can ride on Akamaru or I'll get Jiraiya to carry you. Naruto looked over to where Guy was walking around with Kakashi draped over his back and shuddered. You know, on second thought, I guess I could ride on Akamaru's back after all. XXXXXXXXXXX. It took them 3 days to get back to Konoha. Messages were sent ahead that the rescue had been successful, but with loss. Nothing more was revealed before they returned. Once they were back, an emergency meeting of the council was called. XXXXXXXXXXX. Naruto was pacing back and forth in a small room in the tower near the meeting room. I don't think I can do this. Naruto said again. Yes, you can, Naruto-kun. His mother answered yet again. You have been preparing for this your entire life. He turned to her. Mom, I'm only 15. I thought I would have a few more years to get ready. Will they even accept a 15-year-old Hokage? Of course they will, Naruto. Jiraiya affirmed. We live in a society where 12-year-olds can command adults 4 times their age and no one thinks twice about it. In the ninja world, it is ability alone that counts. I really don't think I'm ready for this. Naruto confessed. I've screwed up so badly. You have. Jiraiya decided not to minimize things. And if you make those same mistakes as Hokage, your entire village will suffer for them. Kusina gave him an unhappy look. She was trying to build up his confidence, not tear it down. Naruto frowned and stopped his pacing. Does that mean you think I should quit? Absolutely not, Jiraiya said. What it means is that you'll have to stop being stupid and reckless. I've known you your whole life, kid, so believe me when I say this. There is no one else that I would trust more to take care of this village. I know just how seriously you take this responsibility and how committed you are to it. The doubts you are feeling right now don't change the fact that you are ready for this. But what if I still make mistakes? Naruto asked. Jiraiya grinned. Oh, don't worry about that, because I'll guarantee that you will make mistakes. Let me share a little secret with you, kid. All the Hokages made mistakes. They all made decisions that they regretted later on. And you want to know why? Because they were all human, and last I checked all human beings are flawed. He chuckled. Well, I know a few Uchihas who would probably disagree. So I'm going into this knowing I'll be making mistakes. Naruto asked. Jiraiya nodded. The trick is to not make any really big mistakes. In the end, Naruto, all you can do is your best. Do what you believe to be right, Naruto, and I know you will never go too far wrong. There was a knock on the door and Yamato stuck his head in. The council has assembled, Naruto-sama. Naruto nodded. It was still weird, but he was starting to get used to it. Thanks. He looked at Jiraiya and his mom. What if they ask me why I should be Hokage? What do I say? Tell them the truth, Naruto-kun. Kushina said firmly. Tell them you are the son of their greatest hero and have spent your entire life preparing for this. Tell them your loyalty to Konoha never wavered despite the hatred that met you. Tell them by the time you stepped foot in the academy you were as powerful as most of your teachers. Tell them that you killed the Kazekage and over 300 enemy ninjas when your village was attacked. Tell them you helped kill Orochimaru. Tell them you have been trained by 2 of the Sunin. Tell them that you, and you alone, successfully rediscovered your father's prized jutsu, the jutsu many consider the most powerful ever created in the Leaf Village. Tell them you were Tsunade's only choice to succeed her. And above all else tell them this, that you are Namikaze Naruto and you are the Rokudaime Hokage. Naruto slowly nodded. I am the Rokudaime Hokage. He took a deep breath and said it again. I am the Rokudaime Hokage. He headed out the door followed closely by Jiraiya and Kushina. XXXXXXXXXXX. As the door to a meeting room opened, all eyes turned towards the 3 of them. Kushina gave her son a quick hug and went over to her seat as Naruto and Jiraiya headed to the front of the table, the place normally reserved for the Hokage. Naruto had discussed what would need to happen with his mom and Jiraiya. He was legally Hokage and nothing short of a civil war could change that. But things would go much better for him if he had the council's support right from the start. Naruto's expression was blank now. He had pushed all the doubts away and would show them someone who was certain of himself. His eyes scanned the 15 members who were seated. His mom, Uncle Shinzu, Hayashi, Shikamaru, Shuji, Asuma, and Sam. He was certain that they would support him. That gave him the backing of almost half the council right there. And with Jiraiya standing beside him he was sure he could get most of the others. He and Jiraiya stood at the head of the table near the empty chair. Naruto did not sit down, not yet. There were nervous looks on many of the faces. Of those present only Jiraiya, his mom, Shikamaru, Shuji, and Asuma knew the truth. There had been no time to tell anyone before the meeting. Where is Tsunade-sama? Uchiha Ryuki asked. Jiraiya looked down the table and answered solemnly. I am afraid she is gone. She was the lone casualty of the fight against Akatsuki and the rescue mission. Jiraiya might as well have tossed an explosive note into the middle of the room. Suddenly everyone seemed to be standing and shouting. Well, everyone who did not already know. Naruto stood there and remained silent. His mom and Jiraiya had told him how this was likely to go and the last thing he wanted was to appear arrogant or to offend anyone on the council. How did this happen? Koharu's voice somehow cut through the noise and people quieted down to hear the answer. That I cannot tell you. Jiraiya replied. Before she died, Tsunade declared all details of the mission to be an S-rank secret. The way he said it, one would believe Jiraiya had heard it for himself. He had no intention of telling them he'd learned of her death hours after the fact. You mean to keep secrets from us? Danzo demanded. We are the Council of Konoha. Jiraiya smirked unimpressed. So what? There are plenty of things kept from the council. He sent Danzo an amused look. That's something you know quite well. Danzo looked displeased but did not argue. What are we to do now? Ryuki asked. About what? Shikamaru asked innocently. About the position of Hokage. Ryuki clarified. If the Hokage is dead, then we must find a replacement immediately. It would be a dangerous sign of weakness for us to be without a strong leader. I'm sorry, Jiraiya spoke up. Were you not there when the council elected a successor? Ryuki's eyes widened as the full implications only now hit him. You can't mean to place Naruto into that position. Jiraiya frowned and sent the man a hard look. I mean exactly that. Naruto was nominated by Tsunade and was approved by a majority of this council. He was legally appointed successor, and as per the law of succession he is Hokage now. That set off a whole new barrage of argument as Naruto's supporters and opponents argued with one another. He is too young and inexperienced to be Hokage. Yamanksa Mishio stated. He has been a Jonin since he was 12. He spent 2.5 years receiving training from me. To say nothing of the instruction he has received in preparation of becoming Namikaze clan head. Despite his youth, he has seen more combat and difficult missions than most ninjas twice his age. Jiraiya declared. It is too dangerous to have him as Hokage given what is inside of him. Ryuki declared. You mean the Kyuubi? Naruto asked, finally breaking his silence. The room suddenly quieted down at the sound of that word. Taking a deep breath, Ryuki nodded. Yes, I do not mean to offend you, but we cannot pretend that the Kyuubi does not exist. Naruto sent him a smile that had absolutely no humor behind. Well then, let me ease your mind. I no longer possess the Kyuubi. It was removed from me by the Akatsuki. The silence in the room was total as the implications of that one sentence struck home. What? Naruto looked around the table. Isn't that good news? Danzo was the first to find his voice. How can you possibly think it good that our enemies now have access to such incredible power? Oh, so now all of a sudden you want me to have the Kyuubi in my guts again? He sent him an angry glare. A minute ago Ryuki here was complaining I couldn't be trusted because I had the Kyuubi's power. Now you complain that someone else has it? I would love to know what it would take to make all of you happy. They all stared at him and his open display of anger. Even Jiraiya and Kushina were staring, as this was no part of the plan to win over the council. Naruto looked at all of them and decided to give them all a very large dose of truth. I am sorrier than any of you will ever know that Tsunade-sama is gone, and that she died to save me. I loved her very much, and even though it was my dream to be Hokage, I never wanted it like this. I am sorry that I was captured, and I am sorry that the Akatsuki now have the Kyuubi. If I could change what has happened, I would. But all I can do is make sure that my godmother's sacrifice wasn't for nothing. With that he slowly and deliberately sat down in the head chair. What do you think you are doing? Koharu demanded. Sitting in my seat. Naruto answered. Whether any of you like it or not, I am the Hokage now, and if I have to, I'll fight for my position. If some of you feel that you cannot follow me, then I invite you to resign from this council, because I am not going anywhere. There were gasps at his blunt statement. I have decided that I am going to be Hokage. Not for myself and not for my father, but for everyone in this village. I may be young, but I know what needs to be done to protect Konoha, and I really think I am the only one who can do it. He looked about the table once again. I am sorry if this sounds arrogant, I don't mean it to be. But Konoha is in great danger. The Akatsuki and their leader are a greater threat than any this village has ever known, and I truly believe that I am the one who can stop them. I will stop them. I ask for your help. Help me to protect and guard Konoha. His last words were an open invitation to them. Surprisingly, it was Shikamaru who spoke next in a firm, calm voice. This whole situation is very troublesome. With the Kyuubi, the Akatsuki now possess the strongest piece on the board. That will make the game more difficult, but more interesting too. He looked from his fellow council members to Naruto. I have known Naruto since I was 8. and I can honestly say to you that there is no one else in the world I trust more. I would trust him with my life and with the fate of this village. Jiraiya also trusts him, as did the fifth. I say we can all trust him to lead us. Naruto smiled at his friend. Arigato Shikamaru. Shikamaru nodded. I am at your service, Hokage-sama. With Shikamaru's acknowledgement, his other close supporters joined in, stating that they recognized him and would follow him. With so much strength revealed, most of the rest of the council went along. Except for one person. Yamanaka Mishio stood up. I will not recognize you as Hokage. Jiraiya frowned. You cannot sit on the council if you refuse to recognize the Hokage's authority. Then I resign. Mishio said with dignity. Naruto nodded and said not a word as Mishio left. He already knew who he wanted to take his place. I thank all of you for your support, and I promise I will give everything I have to protect this village. Now, if there are no objections, I would like to bring this meeting to an end. I would like to ask Jiraiya, my mother, and Shikamaru to remain. He looked over to where Yamato remained at attention. Yamato, could you please see if Kakashi is in condition to be moved? If he is, please have him come here as well. Hayashi, could you please ask Hinata to come here? XXXXXXXXXX. Before long the people he had asked for were in the meeting room. Kakashi was sitting in a wheelchair but seemed awake and well. Naruto had then requested Yamato to remain as well. Before him Jiraiya, his mom, Hinata, Shikamaru, Kakashi, and Yamato waited for what he had to say. What is this about, kid? Jiraiya asked. You never said anything about a second meeting. Naruto nodded. I'm sorry, I wasn't sure how to go about this. Now before I start, what I am going to tell you is an S-rank secret. No one outside this room is to be told about it. I asked for the 6 of you specifically because I would trust my life with any of you, and I am going to need your help. Naruto-kun, Hinata asked. Why isn't Kiba here too? And what about Haku? I trust Kiba and Haku, but I need to keep this to as few people as possible. Naruto explained. Jiraiya, Kakashi, and Yamato will be getting special missions from me, while I want you, Mom, and Shikamaru to be able to advise me and maybe go with me on missions. Kusina perked up. Son, you're Hokage now. You can't just leave the village to go on missions. Naruto shook his head. I'm going to have to, Mom. I'm the only one who can work the Hiraishin. That means there are certain things that only I can do. Why do I get the feeling this is going to be really, really troublesome? Shikamaru complained. Probably because it is. Now, along with being secret, I am going to ask all of you to keep an open mind about what I am about to tell you. The 6 of them all directed their attention to him. What is this about, Naruto-kun? His mother asked, worried. Naruto swallowed. It's about a secret that I was told as I was dying. What? Jiraiya spoke. The Akatsuki told you a secret. Naruto shook his head. No, it wasn't them. I don't remember who it was. When I try to remember, all I get is this fuzzy memory of someone trying to help me. Maybe it was a Shinigami or the ghost of someone I knew. All I know is that it was someone I knew I could trust. Looks passed between everyone. I know how this sounds. Look, kid, I'm sure you believe you got a message from beyond. But it's a lot more likely that it was a dream. Naruto shook his head. Shinigami are real. Souls are real. Hell is real. Demons are real. All these things we know to exist for a fact. They are as real, Chakra. Is it that hard to believe that someone or something was able to speak to me? Can you prove it? Jiraiya asked. No, but I'm sure that the secret was real, and I intend to act on the information. It's too important not to. Naruto paused. To be honest, it's part of the reason I decided I had to be Hokage. If you are sure, Naruto-kun, then I am too. Hinata said. Jiraiya grunted. Well, I won't go that far, but if you tell us what it is I'll consider it. Naruto leaned back in his chair. I know what the Akatsuki mean to do with the Biju they are gathering. Jiraiya leaned forward. He was not sure how much faith he put in this, but he was interested. All right, I'll bite. What is it for? A weapon. Naruto answered simply. Their leader believes he can use the Biju to power a weapon that can destroy whole nations in an instant. He thinks having a weapon so terrible will force people to admit the futility of war and bring on a golden age of peace. That's horrible. Hinata said. Just imagining such a weapon filled her with dread. Oh, it's much worse than that, Hinata-chan. Naruto said quietly. Worse? Kakashi spoke up. What could be worse than the Akatsuki with a weapon that can lay waste to whole nations? The fact that it won't work, or maybe I should say it will work too well. The Biju cannot be used in the way their leader plans. Their power cannot be controlled once unleashed. If this weapon is used, it will release a fire that will never go out. He leaned back and shut his eyes. It will be the end of the world. Chapter 74, Thunderous Applause. They were all just staring at him. So let me just clarify this. Shikamaru spoke up. The Akatsuki are trying to create a weapon that could destroy the whole world, and it's up to us to stop them. Naruto nodded. Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. Shikamaru slowly shook his head. All right, I take it back. Troublesome doesn't even begin to describe this. Naruto-kun, Hinata asked. Why aren't you telling the council this? Something this important, shouldn't they know about it? 2 reasons, Hinata-chan, Naruto said. 1, I don't think they'd believe me. Especially not if I told them where I was getting my intelligence from. If I were to go to them now with this, the council would just try to oppose me and maybe use it as an excuse to try and unseat me. If later on I decide I need to tell them, I'll say it's information that Jiraiya uncovered. You're going to lie to the council? Hinata sounded shocked. If I need to. Naruto said. A ninja village pretty much runs on secrets. If I have to keep a few, or more than a few, from the council, I will. Kami knows that Danzo and Ryuki have kept their share. Naruto, Kakashi spoke. What's the other reason? From what I can gather from Kisame's interrogation, none of the other members of Akatsuki know what the ultimate goal is. Right now Pain thinks it's his secret. I want him to keep thinking that. It gives us an advantage. All right, Shikamaru spoke slowly and certainly. Let's just assume for a moment that everything you've said here is true. The Akatsuki really do plan to blow up the world once they have all the Biju. How exactly do we stop them? There are 2 ways, and we're going to pursue both of them. First off, even with the Kuwabai, there are still other Biju out there. The Akatsuki won't act until they've acquired all of them. Wait a minute. Shikamaru spoke. What about the Shikaku one tail that was in Gaara? There's no way for them to acquire all the Biju now. Naruto nodded. True, but Pain obviously believes he can still make things work with the remaining 8. We have to deny him those 8. And while we're at it, we need to kill him. Pain is the key. Building this weapon is his idea, and he is the sole motivating force behind it. Once he's dead, the threat from this weapon will be over. He looked at all the faces that were looking back at him. I know I'm asking for a pretty big leap of faith here. All I can tell you is that I'm sure enough about this to put my own life on the line for it. I believe you, Naruto. Jiraiya said quietly. You do? Naruto said with relief. Jiraiya nodded. I do. The Sunin looked about the table himself. I'm going to reveal a very special secret to all of you now. Something I have never spoken about to another human being. Though I have talked about it with some frogs. When I was a young man, I was summoned by the great and ancient sage Toad, who gave me a prophecy. He told me I would wander the earth, and that one day one of my students would either bring the world peace or destroy it. He would be the destiny child and his actions would decide the fate of the world. He paused and the silence in the room was total. I have had total of 7 students in my life. The 3 in the Yondame's squad, 3 war orphans I ran into in Rain Country, and you Naruto. You're the only one left. All the others are gone now. With what you've just said I am now convinced that you are the destiny child and that you will either save the world and bring peace or cause it to be destroyed. No one spoke for a long moment. Finally one voice summed up what everyone was thinking. Man, what a drag. XXXXXXXXXX. Shikamaru entered his home dragging his feet. He had been given a whole lot to think about. As was his habit, he had taken a few moments to quietly absorb the information and come up with the proper plan of action. That didn't mean he was eager to put his plan into action. He could hear both his mom and Tamari in the kitchen. Man, this is going to be troublesome. As he entered the kitchen, both women looked up. His mom was putting some chicken in a pan while Tamari was chopping some onions. Well, you're back late, Tamari stated. How was the council meeting? Very, very, long and very, very troublesome. He moved over to Tamari's side. Anything you can share with us? Yoshino asked. Shikamaru shrugged. Only that the council acknowledged Naruto as Hokage except for Mishio, who resigned. He had already told them about Tsunade and about Naruto's being Hokage now, so it did not come as a shock to either of them. Mishio, huh? Tamari commented. I'm surprised it wasn't Ryuki. I'm not, Shikamaru said. Ryuki's not one for pointless gestures. He was standing right beside Tamari as she chopped onions. Tamari. She didn't look up from what she was doing. Yeah. Will you marry me? Her face jerked up as she very nearly cut off a finger by mistake. What? There was a loud crash as a tray full of chicken fell on the floor. Both women were now staring at him with open mouths. This got a roll of eyes from Shikamaru. I asked if you would marry me, you troublesome woman. She continued to just stare at him for a moment. Then without warning she balled up a fist and smacked him on the top of his head. Ow! He stepped away from her as he rubbed the top of his skull. What the hell was that for? I thought you'd be happy. She just glared at him. This is supposed to be one of the most romantic and memorable moments in a woman's life. And you just blurt it out while I'm chopping onions. He continued rubbing his head. Fine then. If that's how you feel about it, forget I asked. He turned to go. Before he could take a step though, a kitchen knife sailed within an inch of his left ear and embedded itself in the kitchen door. He froze. Tamari was suddenly standing in front of him and he was expecting a real beating. To his immense relief though, she seemed to take a deep breath and calm down just a bit. Shikamaru, you can't ask something like that and then just take it back. Not unless you want me to smother you in your sleep tonight. She took a second deep breath. Now I want to know if you're serious. The way she was staring at him, it was obvious there was only one answer to that question that would allow him to remain alive. Of course I'm serious, I wouldn't be risking my life otherwise. She crossed her arms and looked at him suspiciously. Why now all of a sudden? I'm afraid the world might end soon and I don't want to die a virgin. He answered with a straight face. He saw her eyes darken and he knew he should have lied. Ow! He began to rub a second bump on his head. Damn it, woman, you're going to give me a concussion. Want to try answering that again? She growled. Fine, he muttered and quickly came up with something he hoped would be acceptable. The fifth was one of the most powerful ninjas in the world, a true ninja legend. And I saw her die just 3 days ago. If someone like Tsunade could be killed, then obviously it could happen to me anytime. Both Tamari and Yoshino nodded. Memories of Gaara, Kankuro, and Shikaku came to mind. I just decided that there was no good reason to keep waiting since I know I love you and want to be with you. Now a slight smile touched her lips. Well, I guess I can understand that. You still could have at least made an effort to be just a little romantic, but I guess that would be expecting too much from you. She put her arms around his neck and leaned in to give him a deep and long kiss. Both of them momentarily forgetting that Yoshino was standing right there. I know I'll probably regret this, you lazy baka, but the answer's yes. I will marry you. XXXXXXXXXX. Naruto was in his room finally getting ready for bed. It had been a very long and stressful day, and the next several were all going to be just as busy. He had on only shorts and a t-shirt and was about to go to bed when there was a knock on his door. "Come in," he called out, assuming that it had to be his mom. So he was rather surprised when the door opened and in stepped Hinata wearing a beautiful pink and white kimono. She quickly shut the door behind her and gave him a demure little smile. "Good evening, Naruto-kun." Naruto was suddenly very aware that he was wearing nothing but a flimsy t-shirt and his boxers. "Hinata-chan, what are you doing here so late?" He noticed how she was dressed and also that she had put her hair up. He even noticed that she had the fragrance of lilacs. "Wow, you look beautiful." She smiled at him. "Arigato, Naruto-kun." She seemed to glide across the floor to stand in front of him. Her pretty lavender eyes were looking up into his. He began to feel his heart beating faster and his temperature rising. She was standing so close to him. "Hinata-chan, what are you doing here?" She got up on her toes and leaned up to kiss him. When she settled back down on her heels, she began to slowly undo her kimono. "I want to stay here with you tonight." He dry swallowed and his heart began to beat faster still. I thought you wanted to wait too, you know." "I did," she replied calmly. "But I don't anymore. After everything that's happened and knowing what may be coming, I've decided I don't want to wait anymore. I have loved you with my heart and soul, so I don't think it is wrong to love you with my body as well." She let her kimono fall to the floor. There was nothing on underneath. Naruto stared at her luscious body. She simply stood there without any shame, calmly displaying herself to him. Her body was all smooth and inviting curves, her skin pale and creamy. She looked exactly how a woman should look. He couldn't help himself. He put his hands on her and pulled her against himself. "Your dad is going to kill me." Hinata giggled. "No, he won't, Naruto-kun. I told him I wanted to stay at the Namikaze estate in order to help you with your duties as Hokage. I think he may suspect the truth, but since we're already betrothed, I don't think he would mind." He nodded, feeling relieved to know Hayashi wouldn't come looking for him in the morning. Then he had a horrible thought. "What about my mom?" Hinata smiled. "I explained to her what I had in mind. She'll assign me my own room where I'll keep my things until the wedding. But I'll be spending all my nights here with you." Naruto paled, his lust momentarily forgotten. "You mean mom knows about?" He was too panicked to say it. Hinata calmly nodded. "Naruto-kun, she would know anyway if we tried to keep it secret, you know she would." He could only nod and curse the phrase, protective surveillance, in his mind. "This way we don't need to worry. And she's okay with you and me being, you know." Hinata took both his hands and began guiding him to the bed. "She's fine with it?" Hinata giggled. "You're all right with this too, aren't you?" She gave him a naughty smile. "I mean, if you'd rather wait," she squeaked as Naruto pulled them both down onto the bed. XXXXXXXXXXX. Tsunade's funeral would be held 2 days after the rescue party's return. Naruto's coronation would be 5 days after that. Naruto was amazed at the sheer volume of things that had to be done. He did not dress in the formal robes, that would wait until the coronation. But in every other way he was already acting as Hokage. One of his first decisions was to send an invitation to every Kage of every nation, big or small. He already had some ideas about some radical changes in Konoha's foreign policy. He was pleased to learn that Mist and Lightning had accepted his invitation and would be sending their Kages to his coronation, as would Sand and most of the minor powers. Earth and Rain countries were the only significant refusals. Along with trying to improve ties with foreign countries, he tried to meet privately with some of the council members and see if he could win some of them over. XXXXXXXXXXX. Shizun knocked on the library door. "Come in," Naruto called out. Shizun entered to see about a dozen Narutos sitting along a table making notes and going over various books and scrolls. "Naruto, what are you doing?" Shizun had been heartbroken to learn of Tsunade's death. Naruto had wanted to tell her the truth of what happened, but was too ashamed to. Though she was hurting, she offered to stay on and act as his assistant as she had for Tsunade. Naruto immediately and gratefully accepted her help. One of the Narutos, the original, looked up at her in surprise. "What's wrong?" "I sent 5 clones to take care of all the paperwork. If there were an emergency, one of them would have dispelled to let me know." Shizun frowned at him. "That's just it, Naruto. You're letting clones take care of your duties." He looked at her, obviously not seeing the problem. "So?" She shook her head. "So most people don't like the idea of the real Hokage not being present to dispense his duties. And Shizun, it's just paperwork. All my clones are doing right now is signing and stamping a bunch of papers. What I'm doing here is much more important." She looked at the impressive display that was all over the table. "Just what exactly are you doing?" "I'm working on some new jutsus and new seals. I have a couple interesting ideas for variations on the Hirei Shin." That seemed to impress her. "You're creating new versions of that jutsu?" He nodded. "Yeah, and one other thing too. A special jutsu for a particular ninja I know." She shook her head. "Naruto, I'm sure what you're working on will be impressive. But you need to work on it in your free time. Your duties as Hokage have to come first." He sent her a serious look. "They do come first, Aunt Shizun. Everything I am working on here is vital to my future plans to protect Konoha. Trust me, I am doing the village a lot more good here than I would be just sitting at my desk signing and stamping papers. What about your other duties, like assigning missions and meeting with clients and important diplomats and ninja?" "My clones can handle assigning missions just fine." He saw her frown. "They can. I'll still meet with clients and other people in person, as I know some of them would take it as an insult to talk to a clone. And of course any real emergency that comes up, I'll immediately Hirei Shin to the tower and take care of it." "How is that?" She frowned but nodded. "It would be better if you were there in person the full time, but as long as all the work gets done, I suppose it will be all right." XXXXXXXXXXX. The whole village seemed to attend the funeral of the Lady Tsunade. It was a day of mourning and no business would be conducted. Bells tolled mournfully through the day. Before her memorial, a long line of mourners came to pay respect and lay down a flower before a picture of her smiling face. XXXXXXXXXXX. Jiraiya put down a flower. "I always loved you, Tsunade, even when you were damn near killing me. I'm sorry we never got together. In my whole life there were only ever 2 men I was ever jealous of. Orochimaru, because he was the genius and the old man's favorite. And Dan, because he had your love. I hope that wherever you are now you're at peace, and that Dan, Nawaka, and the old man are all there to keep you company. Goodbye, Tsunade, I love you." XXXXXXXXXXX. Kushina placed a flower down. "I owe you more than I can ever repay you. You gave me back my son. Thank you, my dearest friend. I will honor you for the rest of my life. Rest in peace." XXXXXXXXXX. Naruto placed down a flower and stood there looking at her image. "I miss you so much, godmother. I would give up everything if you could be here now. I never wanted to be Hokage like this. I always wanted you to be there helping me. I'm so sorry for what I did. I know it was my fault and I know I can never make up for it. But I swear to you I will be the best Hokage I can be. I will give everything I have to protect this village." I swear I will make you proud of me. I won't let the sacrifice you made for me be for nothing. That's a promise, godmother. I love you. XXXXXXXXXX. 5 days later. He stood before the mirror staring at his image. You look very handsome, Naruto-kun. His mother spoke approvingly. Do you remember the first time I ever wore this? Of course, it was your first day at the academy. Naruto nodded and continued to look at his image in the mirror. He was wearing the white Hokage robes with the orange flames along the hem. The only thing missing was the hat. I remember that day like it was yesterday. I remember Sasuke telling me I was a pretender. Sasuke was an idiot. Kushina said flatly. Don't worry about what he thought or about what anyone else might think. You were never a pretender. He smiled at his mother. I wish Dad were here to see this. So do I, Naruto-kun. He would be very proud of you, son. XXXXXXXXXXX. Naruto-kun, you look so handsome. Hinata said happily. She was waiting for him in the living room along with all the others who would be making the walk to the tower with him today. All the people he had invited to attend the ceremony with him. Alisa-chan was in her favorite pink dress jumping about and eager. Haku was there smiling. There was Kakashi, his Naizen. He leaned over and whispered to Hinata. Kakashi's here actually on time. I think we should be careful, the world might be ending today. Hinata covered her mouth as she giggled. Her father Hayashi was present, as was Niji. Hanabi was there too as a favor to Hinata. Lee was giving him the good guy pose and his teeth were blinding. Shikamaru was there with his new fiancée standing close beside him. The Yamanksa clan heir and new member of the council was standing a little ways off with her arm around Shuji's. Naruto was sad to see that old resentments hadn't gone away. Gabriella and Teiwa were both talking to his mom. He really wasn't close to either girl, they were here at his mom's request. All of his family were present, of course. Grand-uncle Saishu, Uncle Shinzu, and his wives including Anko. There were Shizun and Jiraiya both talking. Yamato was standing off a bit and chatting with Saishu. Kiba was trying to approach Teiwa without much success. Naruto couldn't help but smile at all the precious people he had in his life now. He wanted to protect them and their happiness. You ready to go, son? Kushina asked. He reached out and took Hinata's hand. Yeah, mom, let's go. XXXXXXXXXX. There were no glares as they all walked along the street. There were cheers and looks of respect. Naruto couldn't help but wonder if that was because he was Hokage now or because of who was traveling with him. Regardless, it felt good. XXXXXXXXXX. On New Year's Day 3 years before, he had stood atop the tower and listened to the cheers as his godmother became the Godame Hokage. Now he stood there looking out onto a sea of faces. All of them looking up at him. This is what I have dreamed of my whole life. But I would give it up if you were here now, godmother. He slowly placed the hat upon his head and spoke in a loud, clear voice that carried down to the plaza below. From this day forward I shall protect and guard the village of Konoha. For I am the Rokudame Hokage. There was a moment of silence as his words echoed through the plaza. And then it came. In one voice a thunderous cheer greeted him. It was the same wall of sound he remembered from 3 years before. He shut his eyes and let their cries of approval and joy wash over him. He had done it. He had achieved his lifelong ambition. Now the hard part started. Chapter 75, Welcome to Konoha. He really enjoyed hearing their cheers as he stood atop the tower. He also liked finally getting to wear the hat. The hat was cool. When the cheers finally ended, he turned around to receive congratulations from all the people he'd invited. His mom hugged him and gave him a kiss on the cheek. Hinata followed that with a sweet kiss on his lips. He picked up an indignant Alisa and let her ride on the Hokage's shoulders as people laughed. There was a huge feast being held in the tower to celebrate his coronation as Hokage. He would have really liked to have stayed and enjoyed the good food and company. But as he was already discovering the duties of the Hokage demanded a lot of his time. He stayed for 5 minutes before slipping out with Jiraiya coming with him to a different room in the tower. XXXXXXXXXXX. He stared down at the plans. He went over the numbers again. He was sure it would work. The jutsus he would need were already written down in various scrolls. There were no ways to test his theories, of course. But he had faith that it would work. His will and his vision had brought him to this point. He would not stop now. He would make his dream come true no matter the cost. He heard familiar footsteps approaching. He did not need to look up. "What is it?" Pain asked. His partner approached his side before answering. She stood there patiently in her black robes with red clouds and with a paper flower in her hair. "It is definitely confirmed now." Pain finally looked up from his drawings. "Is it?" Conan nodded. "Namikaze Naruto is definitely alive. What is more, he has been proclaimed the 6th Hokage of Konoha." "What of the 5th?" Pain asked curiously. "She is reported to have died during his rescue. No one seems to know the details of her death. The public is however aware that Naruto no longer possesses the Kyuubi." That's very interesting considering that when we left Tsunade was alive and Naruto was dead." Shrugging, he turned back to his drawings. "Well, it may be interesting but it's not really important." "You don't think this is important?" Conan asked. "No." Pain replied without looking up again. "Konoha's new leader has a real reason to hate us. Isn't that deserving of at least a little concern? Naruto was no match for Itachi even with the Kyuubi. What threat can he be now? The forces of Konoha could be a problem, but by the time he even figures out what the true danger is it will be too late. He is inexperienced and weak. He is far less of a threat to us as Hokage than Tsunade or Jiraiya would be." Conan paused for a bit. "Pain." "Yes." She had known him her entire life. Without him she would have died long ago. She was devoted to him and to his dream. But she was perhaps the only one he might listen to. "Are you sure that it will work with only 8? He looked up at her in surprise. "Of course. You once told me that possessing the power of all 9 Biju was the key to controlling their immense chakra. The one tail is gone, I can do nothing about that. But have no fear, I have carefully compensated the jutsus to make up for the loss. The weapon will work, Conan, trust in me." She looked at him with deep concern. "You know that I trust you, I always have. But what if you are wrong?" "I am not," he said calmly. He put a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Conan, you know how long this has been my dream. Since we lost everything as kids I have burned with a desire to make people, all people, understand the futility of war. And the only way to do that is to make war too terrible to be fought any longer. And I will make it happen." He gave her a comforting smile. "We have come too far to stop now. I will make this work and I will bring peace to this world the only way possible, with the sword. Trust in me." She slowly nodded. "I trust in you, Pain, always." He smiled and nodded back in appreciation. "Thank you." She soon left and he was alone again staring at his drawings. 5 down, 3 to go. He muttered to himself. XXXXXXXXXXX. Naruto had spent 2 dull hours greeting important dignitaries who had come to attend his coronation. There were foreign lords from almost every land. Not to mention the fire daimyo and his wife, and their little cat too. There were also a dozen cages from ninja villages great and small. He made time to greet and speak to each and every one of them. As he did so he was careful to keep Jiraiya and Shizun close at hand. Jiraiya being a living legend overawed many of his guests. Whereas Shizun knew many useful facts about each cage and helped him deal with them while appearing to know a great deal about them. He would have dearly liked to have spent his time celebrating with his family and friends. But he didn't dare use a clone for this. At least he had left a clone back at the party, so he would at least have the memories of it later. After a couple hours of playing host, Shizen mercifully informed him he could safely leave without offending anyone. But even then his work was not done. He had arranged for some private meetings in his office. XXXXXXXXXX. He was sitting in the chair that had been his godmother's not very long ago. It was his chair now. His desk, his office, his position. It was already nighttime, and from the window he could see multicolored explosions of light in the darkened sky. He sighed. Right now his clone was likely on the roof with his arms wrapped around Hinata as they all watched. That was where he wanted to be now, but his duty required him to be here instead. The door to his office opened and he rose to his feet with a friendly smile as an old man in blue and white robes entered. "Kazekage-san," Naruto offered him a bow. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me." Solomon was careful to return the bow. "It is I who thank you, Hokage-san, for the honor you have shown me." Solomon was painfully aware that Suna was no longer one of the great powers. Yet Naruto had shown him the courtesy due one of the great Kages. The respect was greatly appreciated. Naruto motioned for him to sit in the chair in front of the desk, and so he did so. "What did you wish to speak of, Hokage-san?" Naruto sat back down in his own chair. "I have had some thoughts about some rather radical changes to the foreign policy of my village. To begin with, I want to make some changes to the treaty that ended the war." Solomon eyed him warily. This might be bad. If Konoha wanted another pound of flesh, there was nothing Suna could do but submit. Fighting Konoha again was out of the question. "What sort of changes?" the Kazekage asked neutrally. Naruto took out a piece of paper and placed it on his desk. "According to the terms of surrender, you must pay reparations of 20 million ryu each year for the next 10 years. Your ninja are not permitted to perform any missions outside of the Land of Wind, and you are not permitted to sign any treaties with foreign powers without the permission of Konoha. You have also provided us with hostages. I believe that covers everything." The Kazekage nodded. "Yes, those are the terms we agreed to when we made peace. I want to change them," Naruto said flatly and handed over another piece of paper. "This is what I have in mind to replace them with." Solomon took the paper anxiously and read it. What he read shocked him, and he actually read it again to be sure he had not somehow misunderstood. He looked at the Hokage with real surprise. "Why in Kami's name would you want this? This releases us from the conditions of the peace treaty and gives us a chance to become great again one day." He looked at Naruto suspiciously. "What is in it for you?" "I want our villages to be allies," Naruto replied. "We already are." "No, we're not," Naruto said. "It's not a real alliance if you're compelled to it at the end of a sword. The way things are now, you will continue to hate us and wait for a day when you can get revenge. You'll be our allies only as long as you know we are too strong for you to fight. If that should change one day, you will attack us without a second thought." Solomon slowly nodded. He would give Naruto some credit and talk to him honestly, as one leader to another. "That is so. It is the way of the world for the strong to take advantage of the weak. Had we won the war, we would not have treated you gently." Naruto shook his head. "But all that leads to is an unending cycle of war and revenge. How can there ever be real peace when one side is always wanting revenge? What would you suggest instead?" Solomon asked. "A grand alliance where all member villages are equals and all members are guaranteed security from attack. I want an alliance where we can foster friendship between the villages and resort to war only in defense from outside attack." Friendship? Solomon could not believe what he was hearing. "You expect the villages to become friends?" "Eventually, yes." Solomon stared at him. "Are you really so naive as to believe that is even remotely possible?" Naruto shrugged. "Maybe it's a revolutionary idea, but I believe it's the only way to have real peace someday." Solomon eyed him carefully. "You did more than any other single ninja to defeat my village in the war. You killed my predecessor and hundreds of other ninja. After all that, how can you even want real friendship with us? Alisa is your granddaughter, I believe. Suleiman nodded. She is. Well, I have come to care for her as my Imudo. I have a friend named Haku who was a mist nin. He very nearly killed the girl I love and I nearly killed him. But now I consider him one of my closest and dearest friends. So I happen to know for a fact that those who are enemies can become friends one day. And if I have to choose, I will put my faith in friendship over the sword. Interesting sentiment for a ninja, especially for a Kage. Naruto actually smiled at that. Well, one thing I've never been called is ordinary. For the first time a grin appeared on the Kazekage's lips. I believe that, I also believe that you never will be. Well, whatever the case, I am ready to sign your treaty. That's great, but before you do, there's one more thing we need to discuss first. What is that? It's about Alisa and the other hostages. XXXXXXXXXX. See, he signed it? Naruto showed off the signature with great pride. Jiraiya and Shizen both looked at it. Kid, Jiraiya spoke. There was never any doubt that he would. From his point of view, he only gains. Well, I am very proud of you, Naruto. Shizen said. I think it's wonderful that you are trying to make a lasting peace. Jiraiya frowned, obviously not so sure. Kid, this idea of yours, you know it'll never work, right? Naruto leaned back in his seat. Maybe it will and maybe it won't. But I have to create a world of peace, right? What other choice is there? Jiraiya shrugged. Well, you could always try and make Konoha so strong no one would ever dare challenge her. You mean the Akatsuki method? Naruto frowned. No, I'm not going to try and conquer the world or scare everyone into doing what I want. I won't be like them. If I do end up leading Konoha into a war, it will be to create a greater peace, not just to get power or revenge. Jiraiya looked at his student. Naruto really believed it, and damn if he couldn't make you believe it too. Jiraiya smiled. Well, kid, seeing as there are only two possibilities, I'll give you my full support to try and make this thing real. He chuckled. You know you're going to have a real fun time explaining all this to the council. Naruto just shrugged. It has to be done. I have enough support, I'm sure I'll manage. Shizen looked to the clock on the wall. It is time for your next meeting. Naruto nodded. This would be a long night. XXXXXXXXXX. The Otokage smiled. The Grand Alliance, huh? Well, sure, I'll sign. Suijutsu spoke happily and smiled with all those sharp teeth. After 2 years fighting, he had finally secured the position of Otokage and control of the Sound Village. To be honest, I was surprised to get your invitation to come. I'd be happy to hook up with the strongest village around. Naruto had disliked him immediately. Naruto saw an awful lot of Zabuza in the man. Well, that's great, but there are certain conditions to joining. Like what? First off, no more human experiments. Second, no more curse seals. And finally, no more recruiting people from Fire Country. Naruto answered stiffly. Suijutsu nodded. Sure, all that stuff was Orochimaru's doing. He actually experimented on me, so I got no taste for doing it myself. We don't even have info on the curse seal anymore. Naruto knew that to be true from his previous mission, but didn't want to leave Suijutsu any wriggle room on the subject. And we'll stop grabbing kids from Fire Country. Suijutsu's smile widened. We'll be good little boys and girls. Naruto did not trust him. But if he kept his bargain, he would be treated like any of the members of the Alliance. Welcome aboard then. XXXXXXXXXX. The Raikage looked at the piece of paper with a slight grin. You are serious about this? Naruto nodded. I sure am. I already have 4 signatures, as you can see. The Raikage shook his head and handed the paper back to him. You have acquired 4 weak villages that will be nothing more than a burden to you. Kumigakure is a great power and in need of no alliance. He shook his head. This so-called grand alliance of yours will not come to anything. Well, I think great things will come from it. The Raikage shrugged, not seeing it as important enough to argue about. Well, my village has no interest in it. Now, was there anything else you wished to discuss? Naruto slowly nodded. As a matter of fact, there is. I wanted to talk about the two tails Jinchuriki, Nii Ujito. The Raikage frowned. What about her? He asked warily. She will undoubtedly be targeted by the Akatsuki for extraction, just as I was. You should make every effort to protect her. Naruto was surprised to see the man shake his head. She is a ninja of the village hidden in the clouds. She is expected to face danger. I will certainly not coddle her as though she were a helpless child. Every ninja is expected to face danger. Naruto agreed. Not every ninja is expected to face the likes of Uchiha Itachi and other S-rank criminals. She will survive or she will not, but I will not waste resources on her. Naruto saw a look that he was quite familiar with. You hate her, don't you? He asked quietly. She's nothing but a tool to you, and a dangerous one at that. You'd probably be just as happy if she were killed. The Raikage sent him a sharp look. Do not presume to judge me, you have been Hokage for but a day. She is one of your own people. How can you not care about her? Not every village is as soft as Konoha. Casualties are to be expected. The Raikage said simply. Naruto frowned. He could not imagine Sarutobi or his godmother ever being so dismissive about someone's survival. He was absolutely certain that Akatsuki would be coming for her. He was also sure that if special steps were not taken, she would die. Though he had never met her, he felt a kinship for her as someone who had been a Jinchuriki. There was also the more practical matter of needing to foil Akatsuki. I have an idea. XXXXXXXXXXX. Naruto remained at the tower until well past midnight. XXXXXXXXXX. The next morning, Haku was strolling down the hallway towards the stairs as the door to Naruto's room opened. Out stepped a fully dressed Naruto and Hinata in a robe. Good morning, Naruto. Good morning, Hinata-chan. Haku called pleasantly. He knew that Hinata had moved in. He was a bit surprised though to see her coming out of his room. Morning, Haku. Naruto said. Good morning, Hinata said brightly. She leaned over and shared a quick kiss with Naruto. I need to change, then I'll meet you downstairs for breakfast. She hurried over to her room, which was right next to Naruto's. Haku stood there patiently with his friend as they both waited for her. You have a huge smile on your face, Naruto. Naruto chuckled a bit. Well, can you blame me? When I wake up, the very first thing I see is my Hinata-chan. Haku nodded, feeling a bit sad that he had yet to have that experience with Gabriella. You're very lucky. Naruto nodded. A thought then occurred. Hey Haku, remember when you asked me what I would do if the only way I could marry Hinata would be to join the Hyuga clan? Haku nodded. Of course, you told me that you would not marry her. Naruto had one of his huge smiles. Well, I take it back. I know now that I love her too much to ever be without her. So you would marry her even if it meant joining her clan? Haku asked carefully. Yeah, I would. Because being with her is worth that sacrifice. But what about your children? Would you want them to be raised in the Hyuga clan with all their rules and stiff behavior? Naruto frowned a bit. He loved Hinata dearly, and had great respect for Hayashi and Niji. But having spent so much time with that clan growing up, he knew the problems with them. They cared too much for tradition and were rigid and formal even behind closed doors. But even so, Naruto nodded. It wouldn't be my first choice. But even if they were, any child with Hinata for a mother would grow up being loved and shown affection. But what if something happened to her? Haku asked seriously. The way something happened to your father. Naruto thought about that. We are all in danger, Haku. Death can come for any of us at any time. That was something he really knew. But if I were going to lose my Hinata-chan, then I would want to spend every minute with her that I could. And once she was gone, I would love and take care of my children and make sure they knew just how much I loved them. Haku listened to his friend's answer and could not think of anything to add. A couple minutes later, Hinata came out of her room dressed and ready. She took Naruto's hand and together the three of them went downstairs to get breakfast. XXXXXXXXXX. Ka-san, could you and Alisa stop by the tower at noon today? There is something I want to take care of and then we can all have lunch. His mother smiled, knowing what her son had in mind. She looked over to the little girl. Would you like that, Alisa-chan? The girl nodded eagerly. Hi, Ka-san. XXXXXXXXXX. When noon rolled around, Kushina and Alisa were ushered into the Hokage's office. When they entered, both Naruto and the Kazekage stood to greet them. Hello, Alisa, Suleiman greeted his granddaughter politely with a small grin. Aji. Alisa said happily and hurried over to him. He bent down and gave the girl a small hug. Have you been well treated, Alisa? The girl nodded her head up and down. Oh yes, grandfather. She smiled over at Kushina and Naruto. They don't treat me as a hostage but like family. She is my mother and he is my big brother. Her birth mother had died when she was 2. Her father had been killed fighting in Rain Country when she was 4. She had been raised by an aunt and uncle, after that surrounded by the couple's children. She was never alone and she was not unloved. But whether by purpose or not, she was never as close to her aunt and uncle as their birth children were. So when she had come to Konoha, she had been very happy to have Kushina treat her like daughter. Imuto, Naruto spoke up. You are here today because I have decided to release the hostages from Suna. She sent her eyes in a look of fear and deep hurt. You're sending me away? She ran from her grandfather back to Kushina and grabbed onto her. Please, mother. I want to stay here with you and everyone else. Kushina quickly gave her daughter a comforting hug. No one is sending you away, dear. That's right. Naruto came out from behind his desk. She hadn't given him a chance to finish what he was saying. What I was going to tell you was that you could return to Suna or you could stay here and be adopted into the family. Naruto gave his Imuto a warm smile. You won't be our guest anymore, but you will legally be my sister, Namikaze Alisa. Really? She looked up between her mother and brother. I'll really be in the family. Honey, you are already family to us. Kushina said as she rubbed her daughter's back. This will just make official what has been true for a long time now. Naruto grinned. Well, that's if you want to stay here with us. Yes. Yes, I do. More than anything, Naizen, I want to stay here with you and Ka-san. Then that is what will happen. Kushina said and hugged her tight. XXXXXXXXXX. No. Tamari said firmly. Suleiman frowned. Tamari, you have a responsibility to both your clan and village. She held up her left hand to display for him a diamond ring. I also have one to my future husband. I was willing to sacrifice everything for Suna. But now I have new loyalties. I love Shikamaru and Yoshino, I am not leaving them. Konoha is home now. She spoke firmly. Suleiman shook his head sadly. This is the end of the Sabaku line. Can you live with that? She nodded without hesitation. After all the misery the Sabaku name has caused, I am glad to let it vanish forever. XXXXXXXXXX. At 6 that evening, Naruto had called for another meeting of the council. There he presented to them a fait accompli. He had a treaty with the signatures of the cages of sand, grass, waterfall, sound, star, river, and tea. He also presented them with a pair of chests each filled with 100 million ryu. Along with the Shode's necklace, the scroll with the chests had been in Naruto's possession the entire time. So, With the 200 million ryu that was retrieved on the mission to Torika, the village will not lose any income from releasing Suna from her obligations. Now instead of a vengeful Suna we have a willing ally. Suna along with the other 6 villages that have agreed to join us are the beginning of what I hope will eventually be an alliance that will include every last ninja village. Naruto sat back down very pleased with all he had accomplished so quickly. He had no sooner sat than Danzo was on his feet furious. "Are you insane?" he demanded. "Watch your mouth." Kusina barked. "You release Suna from her obligations and give her free rein to become a threat again. I'm giving them the chance to become a strong friend to us," Naruto said calmly. He sort of wished Jiraiya was there to intimidate them a little. But he had already left to gather information. They were the first to join the Grand Alliance. Grand Alliance? Danzo openly mocked. "All you have done is committed us to defend 6 weaklings should they be attacked. Where is the advantage to Konoha? How does this strengthen us? We are already acknowledged the strongest of all the ninja villages. And unlike you Danzo, I believe that having friends in this world will only make us stronger." Friends? Danzo curled his lip in open contempt. There is no such thing among the ninjas of different villages. If you trust others they will only betray you one day. Just as Suna betrayed us. Naruto shook his head. Not if they have more to gain by being our friends. This alliance will guarantee their territory and give them security. I think it is our best chance for a lasting peace. Danzo continued to argue bitterly against it, but Naruto had too much support on the council for there to be any doubt of the outcome. Especially with 200 million ryu just sitting there on the table. Naruto kept a careful eye on Ryuki. He had expected Danzo's opposition. He had not expected the Uchiha clan head to quietly sit there and say nothing. The fact that he voted for approving the alliance was an even greater surprise. The treaty was officially ratified by the council and the Grand Alliance came into being. XXXXXXXXXX. 8 days later. Shizen knocked on his door. She popped her head in. "She is here." Naruto nodded. He'd expected her arrival today, so he was actually in his office instead of his clones. "Send her in." An attractive blonde kunoichi entered and bowed to him. She stood up and gave him a calm look. She wore her cloud hitai around her forehead. "I am Nii Ujito of the village hidden within the clouds. I was ordered to report to you about a long-term mission." Naruto stood up and returned her bow. "I am very glad to meet you Ujito, I hope we can become good friends." He saw her eyebrows quirk for just a second before the calm mask returned. She obviously didn't know what to make of the Hokage of Konoha saying that to her. "Well, I suppose that is possible," she said neutrally. "Can you please inform me of who my client is and what the mission is?" Naruto smiled. "I am your client. I gave the Raikage 5 million ryu of my family's money to hire you as a bodyguard for a full year." She stared at him. "A year? Welcome to Konoha." Chapter 76, Test Day. The following morning as he and Hinata went downstairs to eat, Ujito was already there dressed and waiting. The following morning as he and Hinata went downstairs to eat, Ujito was already there dressed and waiting. Naruto sent her a big and friendly smile. "Good morning Ujito-chan," he said. "Did you sleep well Ujito-chan?" Hinata asked. She couldn't help but look at them both a bit curiously. She was a foreign ninja and a stranger, and they were both calling her Chan as though they were old friends. No one called her Chan. Well, it was all part of the job, she supposed. After just one day this was obviously going to be a strange experience. She screwed on a smile. "I slept well, thank you." "Good morning to you Hinata and to you Hokage-san." Naruto sent her a playful frown. "Oh, you're calling Hinata by just her name but not me." He pretended to pout. "I feel left out." Is he really a Kage? She wondered. The Raikage always demanded respect from those who served him. "Hokage-san, while I am here on this mission I am your obedient servant. To address you simply by name would be disrespectful. He shook his head slightly but didn't try to argue with her. Even after all these years Haku still called his mom Kushina-sama. I am very sorry about what happened last night. I should have warned you, I honestly didn't think you would be ambushed so quickly. Mention of that embarrassed her. That is quite alright Hokage-san. A ninja must be prepared at all times and I let my guard down. Well, if it makes you feel any better, everyone who lives here has been attacked like that. I myself have gone through it several times. Really? Yujito said in surprise. He nodded. Hinata gave her a warm smile. If it helps, I think you looked very nice in braids and pink ribbon. XXXXXXXXXXX. She found breakfast to be incredibly uncomfortable and difficult to deal with. That was not because the food was bad, it was excellent and hot. It was not because people were staring at her and making snide comments, that she was used to. It was not even because she was being ignored and treated as though she didn't exist, that she was also used to. No, what made breakfast so hard to deal with was that everyone was friendly and talked to her as an old friend rather than as hired help. It was a unique experience and not something she had expected. It was a large and rather loud gathering as all the people who lived there sat around a big table and talked and laughed as they ate. She found it hard to believe that Kushina, the Hokage's mother and the actual Namikaze clan head, insisted on doing the cooking. In her experience, clan heads did not do that. She wondered if this was how all the clans in Konoha were or if this was simply an eccentric family. She saw her nemesis skip into the dining room and flash her a very big smile. Yujito couldn't help but send the little 11-year-old a genuine smile back. Despite the horrors of last night, you could not stay angry at the little girl. As she watched, Alisa skipped over to where the Hokage was sitting and gave him a big hug. Naizen, there's something I want to ask you. Alisa spoke up. Yes, Alisa-chan. Can I be a ninja? As though drawn by a magnet, Kushina came out of the kitchen and spoke before her son had a chance to. Alisa. You want to be a kunoichi? Her little daughter nodded. I thought you wanted to be a hairdresser. Well, Ka-san, that was when I was a hostage and I wasn't allowed to be a ninja or use weapons. Now that I'm a part of the family, I want to be a ninja like you and Naizen and everyone else. Kushina did not look happy at this news. Anko strolled in wearing nothing but an oversized shirt. Well, that's great. I'll be happy to help you. You stay out of this. Kushina snapped. Alisa looked up at her mother in surprise. Is there something wrong, Ka-san? Kushina smiled down at the girl. Alisa, honey, you don't have to be a ninja to a part of this family. We will love you just as much whether you are one or not. I know that, mother. Alisa replied. But I really want to be a ninja like you and Naizen. I want to go on missions with my team and see new places, and protect the village just like you do. Kushina slowly nodded, but looked disappointed. In her life she had been a part of 2 ninja clans and through the years had lost many of the people she loved. She had attended her husband's funeral and the funerals of many of her kin. Not long ago she had looked down at her son's lifeless body and then seen her close friend die in front of her. She did not want Alisa becoming a ninja as well. Honey, being a ninja is very, very dangerous. You know that the Lady Tsunade died not too long ago. All of us who are ninja live dangerous lives and can die at any time. Are you sure you wouldn't be happier being a hairdresser or maybe a teacher? Alisa crossed her arms and shook her head. No, mother, I want to be ninja. I know that it's dangerous, but that is what makes you all so brave. She looked about the room. Most everyone was present and they were nearly all ninja or retired ninja. You protect others and provide for the village. You face dangers and challenges and have lives filled with adventure. That's what I want. I want to live an amazing life. I would never be happy just staying here my whole life while others were doing really important things. She gave her mother a serious look. I want to be just like you and my big brother. Kusina saw that Alisa really meant it. She let out a sigh and nodded. All right honey, if it's what you truly want. Alisa-chan, Naruto asked. You're 11, which means you've missed out on 3 years of the academy. Would you like to enroll for 1 year? If you do that you'll have to pass an entrance test to make sure you know everything a 4th-year student should. Alisa looked a bit surprised but excited by the prospect. I'd like that. What do I need to know? You'll need to be able to mold chakra, have basic taijutsu, some weapons skills with shuriken and kunao, know math, codes, the rules of shinobi conduct, science, history, and be able to pass a physical endurance test. Naruto stated. She looked a little worried at the length of his list. That sounds like a lot. How long do I have to learn all that? Until the beginning of September. Kusina answered. So since it's May now you have a little less than 4 months. She saw her daughter look a bit panicked. It's not as bad as it sounds. That's right Alisa-chan. Hinata spoke. The academy requirements are not that high. I am sure if you work hard that you can reach your goal. Haku nodded and spoke as well. You've already received an excellent education so the academics should be no problem for you. But that still leaves molding chakra and weapons and endurance. Alisa said. She quickly turned to her mother and brother. Will you teach me? Of course we will, Kusina answered. But you have to remember Alisa that Naruto and I have other duties as well. We will give you training when we can. Alisa looked crushed. But I think everyone here will be happy to help you. There were nods all around. Yujito suddenly caught herself, she'd been nodding too. What is wrong with me? Training this little girl is no part of my mission. Shinzu said. That's right. Kusina, Naruto, Hinata, Haku, and Anko are all active duty ninja and have responsibilities. But Uncle and I are both retired. We'll both be happy to give you plenty of training and the others will too when they can. Naruto grinned to see how happy Alisa was. Over the years of course she had watched as people trained around her, but she had never done it herself. He chuckled knowing his little sister was in for quite an experience. Well, on the bright side, after more than 3 months of Uzumaki training methods the academy will be a breeze for her like it was for me. XXXXXXXXXX. After breakfast Kusina and Haku went off to train. Hinata went to the hospital to work as a medic nin. Anko left for her own duties while Shinzu and Saisha began teaching Alisa the basics. Naruto meanwhile created 5 shadow clones and sent them off to the tower. They were dressed in the Hokage robes and hat. As soon as they were gone the original removed his robes to reveal the black and red bodysuit beneath. He and Yujito headed not to the tower but to one of the training grounds. XXXXXXXXXXX. Why are we at a training ground Hokage-san? Yujito asked. Well, there's something I've been putting off that I really need to do. He looked at her. You know that I was the Jinhuriki of the Kyuubi. She nodded. Yes. Are you also aware that I no longer am? She again nodded. Well, after having spent my entire life as a demon container, having the Kyuubi taken out of me has definitely been both a blessing and a curse. I no longer have to worry about losing control of it if I get too angry, and people in general seem easier to deal with now. But the downside is I've lost not only a lot of chakra capacity but also powerful abilities including an ultimate defense. Losing the red chakra cloak and the red chakra clones was definitely a major change. I need to see exactly how much strength I've lost and how much I still have. He took out a scroll. With a puff of smoke it became several mats, each containing dozens of kunao. Taking one he carefully tossed it to Yujito. There, that one is for you. Please keep it on you at all times. She caught the kunao and looked closely at it. It 3 prongs and formula carved into the handle. She suddenly gasped as she recognized what it was. Is this one of the Tri-Kunao the yellow flash used with his famous jutsu? That's right. Naruto answered. He tossing the rest of the Konao out into the training ground at random. I was able to relearn my father's prized jutsu. So long as you have that with you, I can reach you at any time, no matter where you are. She held the Tri-Konao in both hands as though it were a sleeping cobra. While I appreciate this, Hokage-san, I must tell you that even though I am in your employ as a Cloud Nin, I am honor-bound to pass this formula on to my village. Here, he tossed her a second Konao. You can send that to your Raikage with my compliments. She stared at him as he continued to throw out more Tri-Konao. Can you really be so cavalier about the secrets of so powerful a jutsu? He suddenly stopped and began laughing. He turned around to look at her. If it were that easy, every ninja from here to IWA would know the Hire Shin. The formula you see there is maybe 1% of the jutsu. Knowing it is worthless if you don't have the other 99%. He gave her an embarrassed grin and rubbed the back of his head. I am the only one to have ever figured out how to use my father's jutsu. Even that supposed genius Orochimaru could never solve it. I studied it for years, since I was an academy student. Then over a 2.5-year period I studied it for a few hours every single night until I was finally able to solve it. So I'm really not worried about anyone getting that formula. She watched as he tossed out the rest of the Tri-Konao. Then he disappeared in a yellow flash. When he reappeared just a few seconds later, he was holding all the Tri-Konao in his arms. Her face remained vacant while inside she felt a whole new respect for him. Upon meeting him he'd kept on smiling and making jokes and trying to make her feel comfortable. He did not behave like a cage in her opinion. She had begun wondering if he'd been made Hokage simply because he was the Yellow Flash's son. But he really could work the Hire Shin. Anyone who can master that jutsu really must be a genius. Maybe there's more to him than meets the eye. I need to remember to look underneath the underneath. XXXXXXXXXX. Throughout the morning he practiced various jutsus. Most of them were wind-based, she noticed, but he used a few of all the elements. He certainly had a very wide range of them. After making a river of earth flow past, he frowned and stood there a while. Is something wrong? Yujito asked politely. I'm not as strong as I used to be, he said quietly. My wind jutsus are still not too bad. But my earth, fire, and water jutsus are a lot weaker than they used to be. He had used no lightning jutsus. She looked at him in surprise. They certainly seem powerful enough to me. You're just trying to be nice, he said dismissively. No, Yujito said flatly. I never do that, not even for my employers or captains. Naruto sighed. Well, there is one tiny upside. My chakra control has gotten way better. He stood there for a moment and seemed to think about something. I wonder. He held out his right hand and balled it into a fist. Instantly it was surrounded by chakra. He slammed his fist into the ground. The earth shook and she was actually forced to leap back as it felt like an earthquake. When the shaking passed, she was stunned to see a crater about 20 yards deep and about 30 yards wide. She was a Jinhuriki, but even she found that display of raw power impressive. Wow! What freakish strength! I would have hated to see what he could do with the Kyuubi. Well, that's not too bad, he muttered. Maybe I'll have Hinata teach me some medical jutsus. He held out an open palm and began to gather chakra into a sphere. He was not surprised to find that the Raiznan was also less powerful than it used to be. He guessed he could make one a little stronger than Jiraiya's. He let the chakra go without bothering with using a target. It was easy for him to judge just how much power one of his Raiznans had. He came to a painful decision. He would no longer use the Raizen Shuriken except in life or death situations. He had finally mastered adding a wind element to the Raiznan and succeeded in creating a jutsu so lethal it destroyed on a cellular level. If he hit someone with it, that person was not only dead but probably unrecognizable. But there was a drawback: if he used it more than once a day it caused him severe pain and bodily harm that was slow to heal. When that had happened, Jiraiya had immediately told him to never use it again, not even in practice. Naruto had thought he would need it at some point, but now he wasn't so sure. With his healing power not what it was, he didn't know how much damage the Raisin Shuriken might do to him. It would be a last option for a life and death fight. Well, that leaves me one more thing to test. He formed the oh so familiar hand signs. Kage Bushin no Jutsu. She saw the air all around them fill with smoke. When it cleared, she was surrounded by hundreds of Narutos. The Naruto at the very center began shaking. She quickly caught him before he fell to the ground. Hokage-san, are you alright? Yujito asked. He was huffing and did not seem able to stand at the moment. 400, he wheezed. 400? Yujito asked. Is that how many shadow clones you made? He nodded as he continued to catch his breath. This is my limit. Yujito nodded. It's very impressive. No, it's not. He replied. I used to be able to make 2,000. She looked at him. Can anyone else in your village make even half this many? He looked at her in surprise. No, but it's nothing compared to what I used to be able to do. She nodded as she continued to hold him up. Hi Hokage-san, you no longer have the Kuwabai's chakra. Which means you'll have to settle for just being the most powerful ninja in your village by miles instead of by hundreds of miles. She gave him a rather sharp look. I can only guess what you were like before, but from what I can see you are definitely still S-ranked, and I doubt there are many ninjas out there that would have a chance against you. You are a powerful and respected ninja with a family who loves you and a village that honors you. If you really miss having a demon inside you, let's trade. Give me your powers and your family and I'll gladly give you the Nibi. Naruto looked up at her in surprise at the outburst. She began to blush and nodded her head in apology. Forgive me Hokage-san. That was disrespectful, I apologize. Naruto slowly got his legs under him again and stood on his own. That's alright. You know you can say whatever you like around me. She shook her head. No Hokage-san, it is not alright for me to speak in such a way either to my employer or to a cage. Naruto smiled at her. It's okay Yujito-chan, I know I act like a baka at times. You're allowed to tell me so. She stared at him. For such a powerful ninja who had to be genius, he sounded like a naive child a lot of the time. The clones disappeared with a long series of pops. Come on Yujito-chan, let's get to the tower. I have a bunch of meetings this afternoon and if I'm late Aunt Shizen will be mad. Slowly nodding, she followed him. Hi Hokage-san. Chapter 77, Different Kisses. How much do you know of the Akatsuki? How much do you know of the Akatsuki? Naruto asked her on the way to the tower. Never heard of them. Yujito replied. That drew a surprised look. They had been actively seeking Biju and Jinchuriki for some time now. He knew for a fact that Jiraiya had sent a warning to the Cloud Village more than 2 years ago. Obviously that information had not been shared with the person it most affected. Akatsuki is an elite criminal organization made up of S and a rank missing nins. Among their members we've confirmed Uchiha Itachi, Yakushi Kabuto, Deidara, Sasori, and before his execution Hoshigaki Kisame. We also know that their leader is an individual by the name of Pain. Unfortunately, all we really know about him is that he is a former Rain ninja powerful enough to easily defeat Itachi, which makes him rather scary. I've heard of Itachi, and the others except for Pain are all in the bingo book. They sound like a very dangerous organization. Oh, believe me, they are. And their goal right now is to collect the chakra of all the world's Biju. He paused for a moment to return the friendly greetings being offered him on the street. He wasn't sure if it was because he was Hokage or because it was now known he no longer possessed the Kuwabai, but the whole village had embraced him again. It was like it had been after the battle with Sound and Sand. Yujito did not fail to notice the way people would wave to him or call out a greeting to have it returned by Naruto. In the village hidden among the clouds, no one below the rank of council member would have dared to do that. Were they the ones who attacked you? She asked. That's right. She was not stupid and could see where the path led. You expect them to come after me eventually, don't you? She did not sound particularly worried. Yes, it's only a matter of time. She shrugged. Well, whoever they send, I'm sure I'll be able to handle it. Naruto came to a stop, bringing her up short. He turned to her. I used to think the same damn thing. I was wrong. He got walking again, and so did she. You're using me, aren't you? She asked quietly without any resentment. The Akatsuki are your enemy, and you know they'll come for me eventually. He shook his head. I am not using anyone. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. He sent her a big grin. See? We really can be friends. XXXXXXXXXX. At the tower, she remained patiently outside his office door as he conducted meetings and took care of business. Including one unexpected meeting. XXXXXXXXXX. Naruto was very careful to treat his guest with complete courtesy. He also kept a friendly and open smile on his face. I thank you for meeting with me today. Uchiha Ryuki spoke with an uncharacteristic grin. No problem at all. Naruto replied pleasantly. I did attempt to meet with you prior to my coronation, but somehow you were never available. Well, unfortunately I was very busy. Ryuki explained. Every other council member made time to meet with me, even Danzo. Naruto pointed out in a cheerful way. Well, I have made time now. Ryuki did not let his happy demeanor slip. And was there anything in particular you wanted to talk about? Ryuki nodded. Essentially, I wanted to inform you that due to the fundamental change that has taken place within you, that I hope our relationship can be improved. His smile took on some real humor. By fundamental change within me, I assume you mean the fact I don't have the Kyuubi anymore. Naruto liked seeing the man look just a bit uncomfortable at the mention of the Kyuubi. Well, yes. Ryuki had hoped to avoid anything specific. Naruto chuckled. You can say Kyuubi, it won't offend me, I promise you. Here, Kyuubi, 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 see. Ryuki nodded, certain Naruto was mentioning the demon's name solely to annoy him. He nevertheless kept a firm hold on his light-hearted expression. Well, now that the Kyuubi is no longer in your possession, I thought it would be good to inform you that the entire Uchiha clan is now firmly behind you and bears you absolutely no ill will. Naruto lifted a single eyebrow. So you had ill will for me before? Ryuki's smile slipped for just a second. Naruto had no trouble spotting the hostility that lay underneath. Perhaps there were some negative feelings before you became Hokage. Now of course you have our loyal support. The Uchiha clan has always been the most powerful clan in Konoha, and I merely wanted to assure you that you could trust in us. Naruto carefully nodded and decided not to question the statement of the Uchiha clan being the most powerful. He preferred commenting on something else. Of course I trust the Uchiha clan. Just as I trust every loyal clan in this village to obey my lawful orders. He let his smile sharpen just a bit. Never mind the fact that 3 members of your clan have tried to kill me. That actually caught Ryuki by surprise. Partly because bringing up such unpleasant facts was unusual for these sort of meetings, and partly for another reason. 3. I am aware of the unfortunate events surrounding Itaki and Sasuke, who were both my nephews. I trust you will not hold the entire clan responsible for the actions of one man who murdered his own father, my brother, before betraying his village. Or one who went insane and attacked you after murdering his own girlfriend. Who is the third? Their father, your brother, Fugaku. My mother has told me all about how he was demanding my death the day after I was born. Surely you cannot blame him for that. It was the day after the Kyuubi's attack and the Uchihas had suffered many losses. You must realize that what he proposed was entirely reasonable given the circumstances. Naruto's smile vanished. A lot of people in this village thought wanting to kill me when I was a helpless child was reasonable. So far as I am concerned, there is no justification for killing a baby. Their talk came to an immediate halt, smothered by an embarrassing silence. Ryuki slowly stood. He carefully offered Naruto a very deep bow. You are right, of course, Hokage-sama. There is no excuse for such a thing, and I apologize to you on behalf of my clan. This is not how I wished our meeting to go. Perhaps it would be best if I were to simply go. But Naruto stood up well, and gave the man a bow of his own. No, Ryuki-san, that was rude of me to say, and I apologize. Please sit and let us continue. Would you like some tea brought in? Ryuki sat down and they both drank some hot tea as they talked about pleasant and meaningless subjects for the next 20 minutes. This was essentially what the meeting was supposed to have been like. Just an opportunity to build goodwill without trying to talk about politics or anything too serious. Before the end of their talk though, Naruto did bring up one particular subject. I think you should know that I intend to kill Itachi and Kabuto. Not because they are Akatsuki or because they attacked me, but because they betrayed their village. Ryuki nodded. I wish you the best of luck in killing Itachi especially. He murdered his father and his existence is a mark of shame to my clan. Naruto nodded. I am very glad you feel that way. So far as I am concerned, anyone who betrays me or this village will get absolutely no mercy from me, no matter what clan they might belong to. And that is a promise. Ryuki smiled and nodded his agreement. The hidden message within those words was obvious, but he carefully pretended not to notice. XXXXXXXXXX. When Naruto returned home with Yujito in tow, he was greeted at the door by his mother. There's dinner on the table, honey. Thanks, Mom. He quickly removed the Hokage cloak and hat. Being the Hokage was great, but he also loved just coming home to be surrounded by the people who were family to him. He looked about as he headed for the kitchen. Where's Alisa? I was expecting to hear all about her first day of training. Kusina chuckled. The poor dear was exhausted. She's already asleep in bed. Naruto smiled. Well, I suppose I should have expected that. Uzumaki training techniques aren't exactly easy to endure. That's what makes them effective. Kusina said. So how was work? Anything you can share? He stopped on the way to the kitchen and looked around to make sure no one else was near. Kusina was a bit surprised at her son's caution. I had a meeting with Ryuki today. He said in a low voice. Did he threaten you or make demands about something? To her surprise, Naruto shook his head. No, he basically came to make nice and chat, sort of like the fire daimyo's wife likes to do. His message was, trust me. Kusina was frowning instantly. Do you trust him? Not for a second. Naruto finally headed into the kitchen. XXXXXXXXXX. The following day, Kusina took her squad out on a B-rank retrieval mission to Tea Country. It was not too difficult, and 4 days after leaving they returned to Konoha. Haku asked Gabriella to have dinner with him, but she declined, preferring to just head straight home. Watching her leave, Haku sighed. Things between them were getting more and more stressful as the days slipped past. They both knew about her deadline and the pressure was building. Nothing had changed, he loved her, and she loved him. She was determined to lead the Uchiha clan. He was determined to found a new clan with a spirit much like the Namikaze's. Sometimes the growing tension led to moments of just spontaneous and amazing sex as they both grabbed onto each other and refused to let go. Other times she could be cold and treat him almost like a stranger. If you're lost, I think the way home is down that way. Teiwaya helpfully pointed towards the Namikaze estates. Haku looked over to his teammate and smiled. They were close and he really liked her a great deal. Over the years he learned enough about women to understand that she liked him as well, as perhaps more than a friend. Had he never Gabriella, he might have cared for Teiwaya in that way. As it was, his heart was spoken for. Kushina had already headed home, so it was now just the two of them. Would you like to get something to eat? Taewei was surprised by the request. Normally she only got invited if Gabriella or Kushina were there as well. She smiled. You paying? Sure. All right. She playfully put her arm around his. XXXXXXXXXX. They'd had a good meal that had even included a little sake. Haku usually didn't drink, but when Taewei ordered sake for herself, she was able to guilt him into drinking so that she wasn't doing it alone. They laughed and talked about the mission and about the sights on the way there and back. That was one of the joys of being ninja, you got to see things and have new experiences. When dinner was over, Haku naturally offered to walk Taewei back to her apartment. When they got there, she had invited him to come up and talk for a bit more. She always invited him and he always no. Except for this time. XXXXXXXXXX. Sitting on her couch next to her, he listened as she played her flute for him. The sad tune reminded him of home just as it always did. But now it was reminding him of Gabriella too. Reminding him that things were not as they should have been. When did I start connecting Gabriella to the tragedies in my life? He didn't like that thought at all. They loved each other. Why wasn't that enough? It was enough for Naruto and Hinata. Then he thought about his own parents. They had loved each other too, and they had both loved him as well. Even after all this time, he could remember being happy surrounded by his parents' love. But in the end their love had ended in tragedy because it had not been strong enough to withstand the forces of an uncaring world. He suddenly felt a gentle hand touching his cheek and carefully turning his face towards Taewei's. She had stopped playing and was sitting very close to him. Where are you? She asked in a whisper. I see in your eyes that you're a million miles away. I want you right here. She looked nervous and afraid. I'm sorry, I was just thinking. She nodded. You were thinking about sad things, right? He felt her other hand caress his other cheek. You always think about sad things when I play for you. I'm sorry. He was feeling very warm. He thought it was the sake, but it might have been because she was so close to him. Don't be, she spoke softly. I'm glad my music makes you feel, even if the feeling is sadness. I am just very glad that you are here with me now. Her face moved forward just a little and her lips pressed against his. She could feel his surprise, feel him stiffen for just a second. But then he relaxed and she could feel him return her kiss. He was kissing her back. She shut her eyes and let herself be immersed by the pleasure of this feeling. He was kissing her and he could feel his pleasure flowing through him. She had never ever been so happy in her life. He shut his eyes and kissed her. Her kiss was warm and sweet. It was comfort. He could just relax and give into the simple pleasure of her lips touching his. She tasted wonderful to him, though it was different than the way Gabriella tasted when he kissed her. As soon as he thought of Gabriella, he opened his eyes again and carefully pulled away from Taewei. The moment was over. He quickly got up from the couch. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be here. He sounded guilty. Taewei nodded, she understood. He felt something for her, but not enough. Haku, my door will always be open for you. If you ever need me for anything at all, just come by. I promise I will never shut you out or turn away from you. She looked into his eyes. Anything you should ever want from me, just ask and I will give it to you gladly. She saw his face begin to blush and she was sure he understood just what she was offering. I have to go, I'm sorry. Haku left as quickly as he could. XXXXXXXXXX. If Kushina suspected, she did not reveal a hint of it either to Haku or Gabriella. Their usual training session went about as well as it normally did. At the end of training, Haku left quickly with Kushina. Gabriella was a bit disappointed as she had decided to have dinner with him if he had asked. She sighed and got ready to go back to the compound. Maybe Dad would want to do some extra training with her today. You're a stupid bitch. Gabriella froze, and slowly turned around to stare at Tewaya, who was just standing there about 10 feet away. "What did you say to me?" "I called you a stupid bitch," Tewaya repeated. "The most amazing boy in the world loves you and you're ready to just walk away from him so you can rule over your brainless clan. So as far as I'm concerned, that makes you one hell of a stupid bitch. Who the hell are you to judge me?" she demanded. "What the hell would you know about being part of a family or of a clan? I have responsibilities that you know nothing about." "Yeah, you're F-sharp and king right about that. I don't know #NT about having a real family or about being an almighty Uchiha princess. I just know that if Haku cared about me even half as much as he cares about you, I'd hold on to him and never let him go." With that, the girl disappeared in a swirl of wind. Gabriella was furious, and more than a little worried by what had just been said. She loved Haku, more than she had ever thought she could. He made her happy, and the thought of being with him for always filled her with raw joy. But whether she liked it or not, she had obligations that she could not ignore. XXXXXXXXXXX. Haku was very surprised when Gabriella showed up at the mansion after their training session and asked to talk to him alone. He brought her up to his room and was nervously preparing to hear an angry accusation about what he had done the previous night. But rather than start yelling at him, Gabriella had put her arms around him and begun kissing him. He put his own arms around her and, though a bit confused, gladly returned her affection. As he kissed her, Haku knew that this was right. In the moments when they were actually together, there was no sadness or regret. Those thoughts only came in the long hours they spent apart. Finally she pulled her lips from his. He looked down at her and could only smile. "What was that for? You know I love you, right?" Gabriella asked fearfully. He looked at her in obvious surprise. "Of course, and I love you. Haku, even if things don't work out between us, I need you to know it's not because I don't love you. If it were just you and me, I would marry you tomorrow." Haku nodded and kissed her. "I know that." She squeezed him tight and pressed her face into his neck. After a moment she turned her face up to him and there was a naughty little smile there that he recognized. "Are the walls here pretty thick?" He could see she was beginning to undo her jacket. He began to smile as his heartbeat began to pick up. "Actually, they're very thick. They're almost soundproof." "Really?" Gabriella let her jacket fall to the floor as they began kissing and removing their clothes. XXXXXXXXXX. When Gabriella left a couple hours later, Kushina was by the front door smiling at her. Being in a generous mood, Kushina did not say anything as her student left. It was quite enough to have seen Gabriella blush as she fled. Chapter 78, A Little House Cat. From a hidden alcove he looked out upon his village. It was raining, of course, it was always raining. He loved his village. Even after all the war and death and misery he had been forced to endure, he still loved it and its people. It was for them, the helpless ones, the innocents, the orphaned, that he had struggled so hard and long, fought so bitterly to gain power. He hated war. All his fellow Akatsuki members, save Konan, would have been shocked to learn that, but it was true. Rain Country had been a battleground throughout the Third Great Ninja War. He had seen at first hand the brutality and pointlessness of war. It never solved anything, there was always another enemy, there was always more reason to fight. He wanted to show the world how pointless it was. He wanted to give the world, but especially his own people, the blessings of peace. He was off to a good start. A year and a half ago he'd finally felt confident enough in his strength to make his move. He had killed the legendary Hanzo and supplanted him as ruler. Then he had killed all of Hanzo's family. He killed all of Hanzo's friends. He killed every last person who had ever worked with or supported Hanzo. He let them all know that a new age had begun and that there would be no going back to the old. He had finally brought peace to his village. With his power he watched over them like a benevolent god. No one saw him, no one knew where he resided, but they all knew he was real enough and they obeyed him without question. He nodded to himself, it was good, he was pleased with what he'd done here. He intended to give the blessings of his peace to the whole world. Conan quietly approached him. He turned to face her. She was his one and only dear friend. She was also his messenger, and to the people of the village hidden in the rain she was an angel. The one who brought the words of their hidden God down to the people. We may have a problem. Conan informed him directly. What sort of problem? Pain inquired. It seems Naruto has hired Yujito to act as a bodyguard. She is in Konoha with him now under constant Umbu surveillance. Pain was silent for a moment as he digested this information. I see. Well, that will make things more interesting. What do you want to do about this? Conan asked. Nothing. He shrugged. For the time being we will leave the two tails be. We will concentrate on harvesting the other two first. The Nibi can wait, for now. Conan nodded and left him. He returned to looking out at the rain. That was not a bad move, Rokudame Hokage, but all you can do is delay me for a bit. Nothing will stop me from giving this world peace. XXXXXXXXXXX. Naruto's first month as Hokage went by fairly smoothly. No unexpected crisis erupted, no major problems took place. During this time though a few interesting developments did occur. XXXXXXXXXXX. Naruto, I need to ask a favor. Shikamaru said. I kind of guessed you did when you went to the trouble of coming here. They were in the Namikaze private library where Naruto and some clones were hard at work. So what is it? Temari wants you to marry us. Naruto immediately chuckled. I'm flattered, but I'm sure Hinata would object, and I prefer you and Temari as just friends. Shikamaru needed a second, then frowned. You're being troublesome. Shikamaru, with you everything is troublesome. Look Naruto, since you're the Hokage now, Temari really wants you to be the one to marry us. Well, knowing Temari, I'm guessing she's probably pretty adamant about it and you'll be in trouble if I don't agree. An evil look came into Naruto's eyes. Pretty much. Shikamaru did not like the way his friend was looking at him. You two are getting married on October 1st, right? Naruto had already gotten his wedding invitation. Yeah, it's the first available Saturday after I turn 16. It's the soonest I can marry her. Naruto let out a melodramatic sigh. I don't know, Shikamaru. I mean, performing a wedding? It sounds awfully troublesome. It was kind of funny seeing Shikamaru squirm a bit. Naruto, do you want her to kill me? Shikamaru sounded just a little worried. Well. He rubbed his chin trying to look thoughtful. I suppose if my chief advisor were the one getting married then I really couldn't say no. Hey, I thought I was your best friend. Actually Shika, I still think of Hinata as my best friend. Shikamaru took on a surly look. I've told you before that I don't want the job. It's way too much responsibility. You would get to spend more time in the village. Naruto pointed out. You wouldn't have very many troublesome missions. Being chief advisor would be troublesome. I'd have responsibilities and people would actually come looking for me for advice, not just you. Man, that would be a drag. Naruto shrugged and got back to studying the scroll in front of him. Oh well, I'll get you a nice present when I show up with Hinata as a guest. Shikamaru stood there for about 5 minutes trying to seem imposing as Naruto ignored him. Finally Shikamaru let out a defeated sigh. Fine, I'll do it. Naruto looked up and smiled. Well then I'll be happy to perform the ceremony. XXXXXXXXXX. So Naizen, they finally let you out of the hospital. Kakashi nodded, feeling a bit embarrassed. He'd been laid up for 3 whole weeks. Yeah, I'm glad to finally get back on my feet. So does that mean you can safely use the Sharingan again? Naruto asked. Kakashi gave him a suspicious glance. For short periods, Yes. Perfect, Naruto said happily. Naizen, can you come with me back to the house? There's something I want you to help me with. XXXXXXXXXXX. Kakashi was standing there just staring in complete shock. Seeing his reaction, Naruto couldn't help but laugh. So do you think it's a good jutsu? Good. Kakashi gasped. Naruto, it's. Kakashi was trying to find a strong enough description for what Naruto had just shown him. Naruto's good humor faded a bit. It's a perfect defense for the Sharingan. According to Hinata, it works against the Byakugan too. I suspect it will work against any Jujutsu. Kakashi shook his head. Jujutsus, techniques, were considered the most powerful and effective of all ninja techniques. A jutsu that could defeat them was incredibly valuable. Even if there was a drawback. When you use it though, you'll be left under the same conditions as your opponent. Naruto nodded. I'll take those odds every time. Naizen, you and Hinata are the only ones who know about this new technique. I need it kept secret. Kakashi nodded. Of course, you don't want Itachi to hear about it and try to develop a counter to it. No, Naruto thought. I wouldn't want Itachi or any of the other Uchihas knowing about it. XXXXXXXXXXX. Shikamaru sucked in his breath as the air rushed violently past. Before his eyes he saw trees being cut down like blades of grass. But what was more frightening? Temari was standing right beside him with a huge smile and a look of exhilaration. After a minute or so the winds died down again and he was looking out on a couple square miles of what had been forest but was now just debris and stumps. Temari shut her fan with a snap and turned to him reeking of contentment. How was that? Scary. He answered truthfully. That only made her laugh. It feels really good to have my fan back and actually be able to use it again. Being a hostage is not my idea of fun. So, after I work out a bit and get back in fighting trim, will our good friend the Hokage make me a leave nin? Shikamaru slowly nodded. Naruto says that if you swear an oath he'll enroll you as a genin. Genin? She said sharply. Who the hell said anything about me being a genin? Shikamaru quirked an eyebrow. Wasn't that your rank in Suna? Only because we surrendered before I could be promoted. Temari replied. Tell him to give me the Jonin test and I guarantee I'll pass it. Jonin? Temari, you haven't used a jutsu or held a kunao in almost 3 years. You think you're ready to try out for Jonin? She shrugged. Just give me a couple weeks to work out and I guarantee I'll be fine. Her smile suddenly grew and she leaned in closer to her fiancé. Oh, by the way, Asuma and Chuji dropped by the other day. They said something about a bachelor party. She leaned in some more until her nose was an inch from his. She was smiling but her eyes held tiny little storm clouds. You're not planning on having one, are you? Well, it's sort of a sacred male tradition here. He mumbled as he took a couple steps back. Oh yeah. Temari said sweetly. Well, in Suna we have a male tradition too. It's called castration. The women in my village practice it on their men if they prefer drinking and chasing strippers to being with their loving fiancés. Shikamaru could feel the blood draining from his face. Geez, I forgot just how scary she really is. And I just had to fall in love with her. Man, what a drag. On second thought, a bachelor party would probably be troublesome. XXXXXXXXXX. Naruto looked up from the scroll he was studying. You look bored. Yujito shrugged. Well, guarding you isn't exactly the most exciting job I've ever had. You know you can sit down if you want. She shook her head. As long as I'm on duty I'll stand. He smiled. Why don't you take a 15-minute break? I promise not to tell your boss. She looked at him for a moment, not sure if he was serious. When he pulled out the chair next to him, she went ahead and sat down. She wasn't tired, she just thought it was easier to amuse him. You know you're very difficult to figure out. Thank you. I enjoy being a mystery to people. Yujito looked at him seriously. I have read your entry in the bingo book. I know you have killed and gone on your share of S and A ranked missions. You were also a Jinhuriki until just recently. All of which means you cannot possibly be as cheerful and naive as you act. Sure I can. Naruto said. It's really not that hard. She shook her head. Are you ever serious? Only when I have to be. Tell me, how do you expect to be the leader of your village with such an attitude? A cage has to be strong enough to do whatever is necessary for the good of the village. You mean like your Raikage? She nodded. Yes, the Raikage is able to make hard choices and the sacrifices that are necessary. Oh, I believe that, Naruto nodded. I'm sure he'd be more than happy to sacrifice you, for instance, for the good of the village. She frowned at him. I am a ninja of the village hidden within the clouds. She said proudly. I have always understood that my life may have to be sacrificed to guard the village. That is true of every ninja of every village. Naruto said. The moment we become genin, the moment we accept the Hittite, we become the swords and shields of our villages. We understand that we must fight and maybe die so that our village can live. But Yujito, he turned to her and spoke without any cheerfulness or naivete. There is a difference between sacrificing a life and throwing it away. Are you sure? She asked with a blank stare. Yes, I am. It's the difference between being a tool and being a human being. Of course he thought of Haku when they first met in Wave Country. All ninjas are but tools to be used. When Zabuza rescued me, he told me that I belonged to him mind, body, and soul. Now that he is gone, I am nothing. If we should die, it should be for a reason, for a cause. Not because someone finds our existence inconvenient. Or because they fear what we hold. Naruto spoke fervently. Yujito stared at him. You really do believe that, don't you? Yeah, I do. She shook her head. How can you stand to be Hokage then? You must know that your orders will cause some to die. You will surely be in situations where you will have to send people to their deaths. How will you be able to stand that? I will be able to stand it by always remembering that those I put in harm's way are ninja, and understand why they have to be in danger. And I will never order someone to a pointless death. Every person in this village is precious to me and I care about all of them. My godmother, the Lady Tsunade, who was the fifth Hokage, would often say she was acting as the Hokage when she put people in serious danger. She did what was necessary to protect the village, but it was never pointless. The people she put in danger were always precious to her, they were never just tools to simply be used and thrown away. He took a deep breath. That is how I think your Raikage views you and others beneath him, just as tools to be used. From what you've said, it's pretty obvious you don't think I'm like the Raikage. I thank you for that, I take it as a high compliment. And as proof that I'm acting the way I should be. XXXXXXXXXXX. That night Yujito drifted off to deep sleep. XXXXXXXXXXX. She was strolling through a peaceful meadow. The sun was beating down out of a clear blue sky. The air was filled with the sweet scent of flowers. As she walked, a little gray house cat with a leather collar strolled up to her. Yujito carefully picked the cat up and began to stroke her as she held her in her arms. I see you're in a good mood today, Nibi. The cat purred content. She looked up with her red eyes. A feminine voice spoke in her head. You like him, don't you? Despite it being a dream, Yujito could feel her face blush. Who are you talking about? She tried to play dumb. She heard a teasing laugh. You know, the blonde boy you are protecting. You think he is cute and you like how heroic he tries to be. He's not heroic, he is just foolish. That's true, it doesn't mean you don't like him. A childhood tune began. Yujito and Naruto sitting in a tree. Enough. Yujito said sharply. Any more and I won't pet you. Fine. There was a happy pause as Nibi purred from the continued petting. Yujito-chan, can I ask a favor? Yujito sighed. I am not taking your collar off. A disappointed growling sounded in her mind. How did you know that was what I wanted? It's the only thing you ever ask for. She continued to gently stroke the cat's neck and back. You know I can never take the collar off. Nibi argued, but gave up after a short time. She could always try again tomorrow. XXXXXXXXXX. Naruto was at the library table working when Gamakika suddenly appeared. Hey boss. I got a message for you, it's real important. Okay, let's see it. Gamakika quickly handed over the scroll. He read it and nodded. Yeah, this is important. He looked over to the frog. Go back to Jiraiya and tell him me and my team will be joining him sometime in the next hour. Right boss. The frog disappeared in a puff of smoke. Naruto got up and headed for the door. Come on Yujito, we're headed for the tower. What's going on? Well, Jiraiya has been on the road since I became Hokage looking for leads to Akatsuki. I take it he found something. Yeah, you might say that. They headed out of the mansion. He's found Itachi and Kabuto. Chapter 79, Lightning in the Sky. Naruto took out his katana and twirled it in the air a couple of times before putting it back in its sheath. That's the fourth time you've taken your sword out in the last 10 minutes. Yujito noted. Sorry, nervous habit I guess. You seem really anxious. Naruto's hand drifted towards the handle of his katana before he noticed and set it down on his desk. Yeah, Itachi and I have a long history and we have a lot to settle. It's personal for you, isn't it? Naruto shook his head. No, he and Kabuto are going to die for the crimes they committed against this village. I won't let personal feelings be a part of this. Yujito gave him a very small grin. Sure. She didn't believe him for a second. XXXXXXXXXX. It took about 15 minutes for his team to gather at the tower. He quickly relayed to them what Jiraiya had found. I'm taking us there immediately. Jiraiya has one of my Trico now, so I can use the Hirae Shin. Does that mean you can carry each of us while you use the Hirae Shin? Kakashi asked. I remember Sensei telling me once he couldn't carry more than one person with it. Naruto nodded. That's right, and carrying someone uses up a lot of chakra. Then how do you plan to get us all there? Naruto took out a scroll. Kiba's eyes bugged out. No way are you putting me or Akamaru in a scroll. Hinata turned to her teammate. If Naruto-kun thinks it's safe, then I'm sure that it is. I've been placed in a scroll before, it's painless and you don't feel time passing. Kakashi said. Right, Naruto said. This is how I sent my uncle Shinzu here. I guarantee that you and Akamaru will be fine. Yujito sent Kiba a snide little smile. If you're afraid, you can always just stay here. Kiba took one look at the attractive older woman and gave her one of his winning smiles. No Inuzuka is ever afraid of anything. He tried moving just a bit closer to her. Say, pretty lady, how about after I help take care of the bad guys, you and me go out to celebrate? She let out a small growl. No thanks, I have a rule about going out in public with someone who smells like wet dog. Naruto chuckled, seeing the look on Kiba's face. He turned to Yujito. We should be back in 1 or 2 days, please keep an eye on everyone while I am gone. She looked at him in surprise. What are you talking about? I'm coming with you. Naruto shook his head. That wouldn't be a good idea. You're a target for Akatsuki. If you came with us, you'd be in great danger. It's safer for you to stay here. Yujito frowned and put her hands on her hips, suddenly looking like an angry cat. I was hired to be your bodyguard. If you're going into danger, then I am coming to protect you. If you were to be killed while I was sitting around here, I'd be permanently disgraced. If you plan on going into danger Hokage-san, then I insist on coming with you. But am I your bodyguard, or I am just a crystal figurine that must be carefully kept? Yujito demanded. Naruto sighed. Maybe Shika had it right back when we were kids. Maybe all women really are troublesome, well except for Hinata. Alright, but be very careful. Naruto put the scroll down on the floor and took out a brush and ink jar. Everyone get together as a group in front of me. As they did so, he began writing out the necessary formula. Kiba tried to get close to Yujito once again, only to be kept, quite literally, at arm's length. Naruto formed a hand sign. Seal. Kakashi, Hinata, Kiba, Akamaru, and Yujito disappeared. New symbols appeared on his scroll. He rolled up the scroll and turned to the only other person now in the room. I'll leave the 5 Kage Bushins here, but they'll listen to you, so you're really the one in charge. Shizun looked anything but happy about that. The last time I was in charge was when Tsunade left to rescue you. Naruto flushed as he felt stabs of guilt. Well, hopefully this goes a little bit better, he said quietly. Hokage-sama, Shizun said in a firm voice. Your duty is here in the village. You shouldn't be leaving to go on a mission, especially not one this dangerous. There's no real choice. I'm the only one who knows the Hiraishin and we have to get there immediately. Shizun obviously wasn't buying it. Why not summon Gamakiki and have him just deliver the scroll to Jiraiya? Great, this is what I get for having an assistant that knows all my tricks. They may need me, so I have to go. She eyed him sadly. This is because of Itaki, isn't it? Maybe a little, he admitted. But it's more because it's Akatsuki and I happen to be the strongest ninja in the village. I can't just sit here behind a desk when I know people I care about are facing that kind of danger. If something happened to anyone and I wasn't there to at least try and help, then I'd never forgive myself. So every time we face Akatsuki you plan to be there? He nodded without hesitation. That's right. I plan to give every ninja in this village one of my trikonao. If any of them run into Akatsuki or some other S-rank danger, I plan to act as an emergency reinforcement. Naruto, she whispered. You'll be putting yourself in constant danger. I know, he answered seriously. But isn't that what the Hokage is supposed to do? Protect the people of the village no matter what. She slowly nodded. She went up to him and hugged him and gave him a kiss on the cheek. You had better come back safe and sound, Naruto, the village needs you. We'll all come back safe, Aunt Chizun. He wanted to say it was a promise but knew better. He gave her a cheerful wink and was suddenly gone in a flash of yellow. XXXXXXXXXXX. In the next instant there was a yellow flash thousands of miles away. Took you long enough, kid. Naruto found he was standing at the very crest of a high ridge. Below him was a huge valley, perhaps twice as wide as the valley of the end, with a river coursing down the middle of it. Several bolts of lightning lit up a dark sky and thunder shook the air. Rain was coming down in one huge torrent, drenching him in less than a minute. He looked over to Jiraiya. The Sanin's normally spiky hair was matted and flat, hanging down the front and sides of his head. Is this really river country? It feels a whole lot more like rain country for some reason. Gamakika should have warned me there was a storm. He couldn't have, Jiraiya answered. The sky was clear just 10 minutes ago. Lightning split a black sky with a crash of thunder. Naruto looked up at the storm clouds that completely filled the afternoon sky. This started just 10 minutes ago. You sure about that, pervy granddad? Jiraiya frowned. Of course I'm sure, and would you stop calling me that? From now on you should address me as Jiraiya-sensei. Naruto took out the scroll. Sure, and from now on you can call me Hokage-sama. Jiraiya made a rude noise. Like that'll ever happen. Whatever you say, pervy granddad. He made a sign. Release. His team appeared around him. Yujito immediately stared up into the pouring rain. Is something wrong, Yujito-chan? Hinata asked. I hate being wet. She muttered. All right then, Naruto spoke to Jiraiya. Where are Itaki and Kabuto? Jiraiya waved at the valley below. Down there somewhere. I lost track of them when they entered the valley. Naruto looked over to his girl. Hinata-chan. She nodded. Byakugan. She activated her bloodline and began scanning the vicinity. Naruto, I've searched a 2-mile radius and don't see anyone. That mean they got away? Kiba sounded disappointed. No, Jiraiya said firmly. I think they're still in the valley somewhere. It's a lot more than 2 miles, so they're just likely out of Hinata's range. Naruto glanced to his other teammate. Kiba, there any chance? Are you joking? There's no way me or Akamaru can pick up a scent in all this. Great, Naruto muttered. This place is huge. He quickly performed a favorite jutsu. Kage Bushin. A dozen shadow clones appeared and immediately rushed down the side of the ridge. Is that all, kid? Aren't you going to make more? No, I don't want to use up the chakra. Naruto looked at everyone. I hate to do this, but we can't risk losing Itaki and Kabuto. We need to find them and deal with them. We'll have to split up. If you spot them, call in the rest of the team, we'll take care of the 2 of them as a group. We'll split into 3 squads, me and Yujito, Kakashi Aizen, Kiba, and Akamaru, and Pervy Grandad with Hinata-chan. Are you sure you want to split up, Naruto? Kakashi cautioned. That can be a dangerous tactic when facing a powerful enemy in an unknown environment. Naruto thought about it for a moment, and nodded. If we wait, we risk letting them get away. We all have radio communicators, so as soon as any of us spot them, we can all join in. Something then occurred to Naruto. Jiraiya, what are they doing here anyway? Your note didn't say. They're chasing someone, who I don't know. Well, as long as they're here, I guess it doesn't really matter why. Okay, let's split up, and remember to call in if you spot them. As more lightning filled the sky, they rushed down into the valley. XXXXXXXXXXX. Enough. An annoyed Itake pushed Kabuto's hand away from his arm. You're not fully healed. Kabuto said with his usual smile. I am healed enough to work jutsus, and that is sufficient. Kabuto shrugged. If his partner wanted to suffer a little extra pain, that was fine. As usual, Kabuto's injuries healed on their own. He put up a surprisingly good fight. Yes, Itaki admitted. He knew enough to avoid eye contact with me, and we were not aware of his full ability. Now that we know, he will be easy enough to capture. That's if we can find him. The valley floor was wild forest with heavy underbrush. He won't leave any tracks we can follow in this monsoon. Our leader will not tolerate failure in this matter. Itaka said. To capture him is the highest command given unto us by the Akatsuki. So what do you want to do? Kabuto asked. We will split up and seek him out. Itaka decided. Above them, several forks of lightning filled the sky. XXXXXXXXXXX. Sashaku dropped to his knees within some leafy bushes. He was breathing heavily. He only needed a minute and he would recover his stamina. From within the bushes his eyes darted about, looking for the men with the black cloaks and red clouds. He didn't see anyone, he didn't hear anyone, and he couldn't smell them. He dropped his hand to the wound on his thigh. The kunai had cut deep, but it was almost totally healed. Without the storm he would have left a blood trail big enough for a cub to follow. But with all the rain there was no chance of it giving him away. Having finally caught his breath, he got up again and started to run. XXXXXXXXXX. Naruto froze in the tree branch and ducked down, hoping he hadn't been spotted. The rain and the storm worked in his favor, as his target went past not 15 feet away and never spotted him. Naruto smiled to himself, and disappeared in a small puff of smoke. XXXXXXXXXX. The original Naruto came to a sudden halt as his clone's memories entered. Yujito came to a stop right beside him. What is it? Have you found something? Naruto smiled at her. Oh yeah, I found something. He switched his radio to send. Everyone, this is Naruto. One of my clones has spotted a target. I want you all to join with me, over. He switched to receive and was rewarded by heavy static. He waited 30 seconds, but there was no reply save for the static. He hit the send button again. This is Naruto, can anyone hear me? He again hit receive only to hear the crackle and pop of static. Yujito looked up at the sky as more thunder shook the heavens. It is all this lightning, she explained. It must be ionizing the air so radio waves won't work. Damn, he muttered. He looked at her. It's up to us then, come on. He began moving in a different direction and Yujito fell in right behind. XXXXXXXXXXX. Kakashi and Kiba were approaching the river. With all the rain pouring down, it was starting to flood over its banks. The water was a gigantic rapid. He and Kiba were just getting ready to leap over it when Kakashi spotted the Kunao coming at him. Look out! Kakashi shouted as he and Akamaru dodged out of the way. Kabuto came out of hiding and landed not too far from them by the river's edge. Well, hello Kakashi, hello Kiba, nice to see you again. Kakashi hit the send button on his communicator. This is Kakashi, we've found Kabuto and are requesting backup. When he released the send button, his only answer was static. He knew enough about atmospheric conditions to guess what was going on and cursed beneath his breath. Kiba, it looks like it's just the three of us. That's fine with me. Kiba shouted. Akamaru barked out his agreement as well. They had actually gone on a great many missions as a unit while Naruto was away and Hinata was apprenticed to Tsunade. So what are the two of you doing way out here? Fishing trip maybe? Kabuto sounded polite as he almost always did. We're here to end your life and the life of Uchiha Itachi, Kakashi stated. Kabuto smiled in response. Well, isn't that sweet? So much attention from the old hometown makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. By the way, did Naruto get my gift basket? I sent him one in honor of his making Hokage. It's always good to see people you know do well. Kakashi just shook his head. You have guts, I'll give you that. Kakashi lifted up his hitai to expose his Sharingan. But even if you have guts, you're still nothing but a damn traitor. Kabuto pushed his glasses up. Would it help if I said I was sorry? Kiba, Plan 4. Right. During their many missions and training sessions together, they had worked out a number of combat strategies. Kiba ran those some hand signs. Man-beast doppelganger. With a puff of smoke, he and Akamaru transformed into a pair of half-man, half-beast warriors. They immediately rushed straight in at Kabuto. They did not use any of their more advanced attack techniques such as the lightning fang. Instead, the two of them preferred to come straight forward and rely on their speed and teamwork. As the two of them came forward, he blocked expertly and gave ground to their taijutsu attacks. He was smiling at the amateurish efforts. Obviously, Kiba and his pet were no danger to him. His teammate Hinata had been much more powerful. The only danger was from Kakashi, who was hanging back as the other two attacked. Looking for a weakness obviously, so I think I'll wrap this up quick. Activating his chakra scalpel, he lanced into a couple of shoulders and thighs as his opponents kept rushing forward. Suddenly Akamaru changed into his true form and came up limping on just 3 legs. Kiba gave a shout and leapt back, his right arm suddenly hanging dead at his side. Kabuto smiled over at Kakashi. You should have brought Hinata with you, she would actually be a threat to me. I'll show you a threat. Kakashi pulled out a kunao and rushed forward. Kabuto was a little disappointed not to have the famous copy nin using the Chidori or Raikiri on him. Kabuto danced away to give himself just a little more room. As the kunao hand came in aiming for his chest, he struck the tendons in the upper arm with his chakra blade. Kakashi immediately disappeared in a puff of smoke. Ah, crap. He must have slipped in a shadow clone while I was focused on Kiba and his stupid dog. Kabuto had instantly come up with the correct answer, but too late to do him any good. The real Kakashi leapt out of the ground at Kabuto's feet with the rakery in his right hand. Kabuto was fast enough to just barely avoid a lethal blow. Kakashi had been aiming for the heart, but thanks to Kabuto's sudden dodge, his rakery instead plunged deep into the medic nin's left lung. Screaming in pain and feeling smoke fill his throat, he leapt back towards the river. The muddy ground beneath his feet gave way, and before he or his enemies knew it, he was being swept away in the torrent. He was swiftly gone from sight. Damn it, Kakashi cried in frustration. Just 6 more inches to the right and he'd be a corpse. Maybe he'll drown. Kiba didn't sound like he believed it himself. Kakashi shook his head. Not that one, he's got a real gift for survival. He checked both Kiba and Akamaru. Neither was seriously hurt, but their wounds would leave them awkward and there was still Ataka lurking somewhere. Come on, we need to find Hinata so she can fix the damage. Kakashi led them back into the valley. XXXXXXXXXX. Jiraiya. Hinata called out excitedly. Her Byakugan was active. I've found someone up ahead. He looked over to her and nodded. Is it Itachi or Kabuto? Neither, it's a ninja I've never seen before and he's running towards the south end of the valley. He has a lot of chakra capacity. Jiraiya frowned. How much is a lot? She frowned. I think he may have about double what Naruto has, but it's much less than what Naruto used to have. That was plenty to give Jiraiya a momentary pause. Well, that's not good. He pressed his radio communicator button and tried to call in the others, only to find there was no answer other than static. Great. It picks a fine time to break down. Actually, Jiraiya, Hinata spoke up helpfully. All the lightning has likely ionized the air and so made radio communication impossible. Of course. Jiraiya wasn't about to admit he didn't know what she was talking about. Well, in any case, if Akatsuki is interested in him, then so am I. Let's see if we can recruit him to join us. XXXXXXXXXX. A couple minutes later, the two of them leapt out in front of the fleeing ninja. They both got a good look at him. Jiraiya guessed the kid was 18 or 19. He had long silver hair about the color of Kakashi's that he wore halfway down his back. His eyes were silver, with tiny flecks of blue in them. He had on some ratty tan-colored shirt and pants that were in tatters and falling apart. On his side looked to be a couple shuriken holders. Around the boy's neck was a necklace that seemed to be made from the teeth of animals. Jiraiya held out his hands in a calming gesture, but before he could even speak, the boy screamed out. Leave me alone. Hinata could see his chakras suddenly spike and seem to reach up into the air. With her Byakugan she could also see 2 bolts of lightning coming down as if being drawn in by the boy's chakra. She had only enough time to scream a warning as she leapt away. Jiraiya. The light was blinding and she could feel the heat of the lightning as it struck the ground where she'd been just a second before. It was horribly close, but a clean miss. Jiraiya had only begun to leap and had been struck full on. He screamed as his body convulsed and shook and burned. He fell to the ground mercifully unconscious. Hinata rushed over to help him. A quick diagnostic jutsu revealed that his life was not in immediate danger. However, he was suffering severe 2nd and 3rd degree burns over much of his left shoulder, chest, and back. If he'd been awake, he'd have been screaming. She immediately began the correct medical jutsu to start repairing the worst of it. But when this was over, he would have to be transferred to Konoha Hospital's burn ward. The boy had not stopped running. He had not even looked back over his shoulder to see the results of what he had done. With her Byakugan still active, she watched as he ran, but could do nothing about it. XXXXXXXXXX. The ninja they were pursuing had stopped, and so did they. From across about 20 yards of forest they looked each other over. Naruto gave a very slight nod as proof of a grudging respect. Hello Itachi-kun. Just the tiniest hint of a smile appeared on the Akatsuki's face. Hello Naruto-kun. Chapter 80, third and final. The two faced each other in the pouring rain. The Hokage and the traitor. Yujito stood just a couple steps behind Naruto as usual. She could feel his killer intent rising higher and higher. She noticed his hands trembling just a bit. She looked across to where Itachi stood. She knew to avoid looking at his face. He seemed completely calm. She could sense nothing from him at all. Your right sleeve looks burned. Naruto commented. I was struck by lightning. Itachi replied calmly. You hurt? Itachi shook his head a bit. The injury was minor and has been healed by Kabuto. An uncomfortable silence fell between them. The only sound was the rain. You may doubt this. Itachi finally spoke. But it pleases me to see you alive, Naruto-kun. Well, that is surprising, considering it was you who captured me. Itachi made no apologies. It was the command of my organization that I do so. Naruto smirked a bit. And we all know how much loyalty means to you. Another silence fell between them. High above them lightning filled the sky. How are you alive, Naruto-kun? Itachi asked. When we departed you were certainly dead. Since the Lady Tsunade was alive at that point, I assume that she was responsible. Yujito gasped and looked to Naruto. He was actually dead? This guy is just full of surprises. Naruto nodded. My godmother used a forbidden technique and brought me back to life, at the cost of her own. He couldn't quite keep the anger out of his voice. And now you want revenge, is that it? Yes, Naruto was finally willing to admit it. I want revenge, not only for my godmother and myself but for the village and for everyone you betrayed. This is foolishness, Naruto-kun. Itachi almost sounded sad. You cannot hope to defeat me. You're an arrogant bastard. It is not arrogance, Naruto-kun. It is simple fact. Even with the power of the Kyuubi you were no match for my Sharingan. A slow smile crossed Naruto's face. Gee Itachi, you sound like most of the other Uchihas relying on your Sharingan. I thought that was what you hated about your clan. As Itachi frowned at him, Naruto carefully whispered to Yujito. Can you see in the dark? His question caught her by surprise. Huh. I know cats have night vision, do you? She hesitated, she didn't like sharing her secrets, but answered him. Yes, I do. Good, get ready. I will not kill you, Naruto-kun. Itachi announced. But if you choose to attack me I will shatter your mind again. Oh really? Naruto replied. You won't kill me. And what makes me so special? Do you remember when we first met, Naruto-kun? Naruto nodded, he doubted he would ever forget it. I was a student leaving the academy with my mom. Yes, I looked at you with my Sharingan. You asked me what I saw. Do you remember what my answer was? You said I was a mystery. Naruto answered. He could still remember squirming underneath Itachi's gaze. So what do you see now? I see a very powerful ninja, a worthy Hokage, and a man I respect. In this world there are only a handful of men that I respect. I would hate to lose you. Naruto was surprised to hear that, and even more surprised to find that he appreciated the compliment. Unlike most people in the world, Itachi would never say anything he did not believe. Naruto stiffened his back and gave his opponent a full bow. Thank you, and I will admit that I respect your courage and your skill, almost as much as I loathe the choices you have made. This is the third time we have faced each other and it will be the last. He brought his hands up and began forming signs. Fight me to the death. He completed the jutsu. Sphere of Eternal Night. To both Itachi and Naruto everything suddenly went black. This was not the darkness of night. This was complete darkness where even the smallest flicker of light had been banished. Had there been someone else nearby, they would have seen a massive dome about 200 yards across appear. The rain passed through it, but nothing at all could be seen but an inky blackness. A sudden terror filled Itake's heart. He was blind. This was his one secret fear. He feared it much more than death. Since activating his Mangekyo, his sight had been slowly failing him. He was terrified. He clamped down on the fear. What is this? Somehow his voice was without a trace of worry. Kage Bushin no Jutsu. 100 clones came into being and surrounded Itake's chakra signature. Naruto was just as blind as his opponent, but he had long since developed excellent chakra sensing skills. He was more than willing to fight blind. This is a special jutsu that I developed specifically to counter the Sharingan. That is impossible. Itake ground out. He could sense chakra as well, but his skill was nowhere near as developed as Naruto's. No genjutsu can fool the Sharingan. Who said it was a genjutsu? This is a ninjutsu. I create a field that absorbs light and chakra. I got the idea from an earth-style jutsu that does the same using a dome. Along with blinding you, it will slowly absorb your chakra and feed it into me. Naruto smiled, though Itake could not see it. So the longer we stay here, the stronger I get and the weaker you get. Itake could feel the slight drain on his chakra. I see, then I suppose I cannot waste time. He quickly leapt up and formed hand signs. Phoenix Immortal Fire Technique. Dozens of small gobs of fire flew from his mouth. The clones drew their swords and closed in. The true Naruto rushed forward as well. Yujito could see clearly what was going on. She was the only one who could. Itake's fireballs were small but enough to destroy several of the clones. The rest kept coming. Things seemed to be getting serious. Looks like I finally get to fight. She released the demonic chakra within her and took the form of a miniature Nibi standing 10 feet high. Her duty was to protect Naruto, and she intended to, hurrying to get to his side. Both Itake and Naruto could sense the immense chakra that Yujito released. Itake could only take note of it while Naruto smiled. Grand Fireball Technique. Itake sent out 3 massive boulders of flame. In each hand he then took 4 shuriken and fired them off towards the clones that were dodging the boulders. He could hear the light pops through the rain and sense some of the chakra signatures disappearing. But not enough of them. He continued to move and dodge wildly, trying to keep space between him and the sword-wielding clones. Again and again he tossed handfuls of shuriken and kunao. He was hitting some of them, but the rest kept closing in. He landed and pressed his back against a tree. He was in a desperate situation without the use of his Sharingan. He was intelligent enough to see the irony. He had condemned his clan for relying on the Sharingan and their Uchiha blood to always ensure victory. To him it had been an unforgivable sign of weakness. Yet facing Naruto he had been relying on the Mangekyo to ensure his own victory. But he did still have another option. I am truly sorry that it has come to this, Naruto, but you leave me no choice. Amaterasu. From out of Itake's right eye came a terrible wall of black fire. It spread out like a wave and devoured everything it touched. Though Itake could not see it, he could hear the pops of all Naruto's shadow clones being annihilated as the fire rushed on towards the 2 remaining people before him. I am sorry, Naruto. Naruto stopped his charge as he got the memories from his clones. None of them could see anything, of course. But what they all had in common was a sense of intense heat before dispelling. He could sense one hell of a big jutsu coming straight towards him. He was about to leap when he felt a pair of claws grab him by the shoulders and slammed him onto the wet earth. He then felt himself being covered up by a huge body that seemed to be made of chakra. Stay down! Yujito screamed. She could see what was coming, a wave of fire that was turning everything to ash. With Naruto safely beneath her, she covered him up as best she could. The black flames reached her and it felt like being thrown into the sun. She would have never believed it, but even a creature of elemental fire like the Nibi could burn. The jutsu attacked her deliberately as though trying to burn a way through her to reach Naruto. It destroyed the surface of her form, but more demonic chakra flowed out of her to rebuild and replace what was lost. On the black flames came, determined to turn her to ashes. Again and again the Nibi's chakra resisted and fought back, keeping the black fire from Yujito's tender flesh. After more than a minute of this fiery assault, the last of the Amaterasu was exhausted. With the threat gone, Yujito released her demonic form and crumpled onto the grass next to an unharmed Naruto. Naruto got up to his knees and reached over to her. He could sense her but still not see her. As he was trying to get a hold of her, he put his hands down somewhere below her shoulders and above her stomach. "What are you doing?" a tired but very surprised Yujito asked. She could actually see him blushing as he yanked his hands back. He of course could not see her blush. "I was just wanting to see if you were all right, honest." "I'm fine," she assured him. "But stopping that jutsu took everything out of me. Thank you for protecting me," he said sincerely. "I'm your bodyguard, that's what you hired me for," Yujito said. "Stay right here, I'll be back as soon as I can." "That's a promise." He ran off towards Itaka. Itaka pushed himself away from the tree. Amaterasu had taken a whole lot out of him. He wasn't sure what had happened, but Naruto was coming towards him while the demonic chakra he'd sensed was greatly diminished. "Did the two tails protect you from my attack? Is that how you survived, Naruto?" Itaka called out. "Her name is Yujito," Naruto shouted back. He began taking out his tri-konao and throwing them one after another at Itaka. All the konao he carried now were tri-konao. "If you have to talk about her, call her by her name," Itaka sighed. He could hear the konao coming at him and he managed to dodge easily. It seemed Naruto was a bit distracted. "Your attacks are weak, Naruto, and the emotion in your voice is obvious. I told you long ago that you needed to turn away from emotions, they only weaken you." Naruto kept tossing his tri-konao and continued to miss. "If you still believe that after all this time, then you're a fool. A ninja's true strength is only revealed when he is trying to protect those who are precious to him. I've seen what people can do when they are fighting to protect what they love. That is when they can become as strong as they need to be. No, Naruto-kun, love is only an impediment, a weakness. Concern for others will only distract you from your ultimate goal. To achieve power, you must be prepared to act ruthlessly in your own interest regardless of others." "You're sick," Naruto growled out. "How can you stand to feel that way? I am the Hokage and I have power. But it would mean nothing to me if I didn't have people to share it with. If I didn't have people I treasured and wanted to protect." In the blackness, Itaka slowly shook his head. "It is a pity, Naruto-kun. I had hoped that your eyes would open. I had hoped that you would see this world for what it truly is, a heartless jungle where the strong devour weak. I had hoped you would see the truth and become truly strong. If you mean become like you, I'd rather die first. I'd much rather die than be like you and not care for anyone else." Itaka came to a stop and Naruto stopped throwing tri-konao. Instead he now pulled out his katana. "Itaka, is there any chance you would be willing to surrender to me and return to Konoha to face trial?" That almost got a smile. "No. In that case, let's end this." With a yellow flash, Itaka could not see Naruto disappeared. He reappeared directly behind Itaka near one of the tri-konao he had thrown. Moving as fast as he could, Naruto rammed his sword into Itaka's back and forced it in all the way to the hilt. Crying out in pain and surprise, Itaka felt like he'd been cut in half. He opened his mouth and gagged out blood. "It's over," Naruto said calmly. He ended his jutsu and the darkness surrounding them disappeared. The ground they stood on was all blackened ash except for a small area of grass where Yujito was. The rain was still pouring down. Naruto stood directly behind Itaka, still holding his katana with both hands. Itaka's blood was flowing out of him and mixing with the rain. Itaka was looking down at 2 feet of steel coming out of the middle of his chest. he was coughing up more blood and could feel himself growing cold. Congratulations, Naruto-kun, you've killed me. There was no anger in Itake's voice, though there seemed to be regret. Itake, please answer me one question. How do I defeat pain? If you still have any affection for our village, please tell me. Though it hurt, Itake chuckled a bit. Not for the village, but for you, Naruto-kun. I will answer. He coughed up some more blood and began to shake. Use the same jutsu, he has, the Rinnegan, he is stronger than me, he is 6. Itake began gasping for air. What do you mean he is 6? 6 what? Itake turned his face up towards the heavens. I can't see. I am blind. Those were his final words. Without another sound he slumped forward and slid out of the katana and to the blackened ground. Naruto carefully checked his pulse to confirm there was none. He could sense no chakra coming from Itake's body. Naruto simply stood there and looked down at the body. It was finally over. Uchiha Itake was dead.